Okay, good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is Monday, November 20th, the Policy Committee meeting for our region. And it's 6 o'clock, and if you could please stand for the allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay,
You can start.
Connor, could you please call the roll?
Bonke,
Here.
Lori Hayes,
Here.
Casey Graham,
Here.
Tim Rudy,
Here.
Monica Gary,
Here.
Matthew Kelly,
Here.
Jacob Lane, Marcy Parker,
Here.
Bob Schneider,
He may be on the live.
Here.
Chris Yakubowski,
Here.
David Brown, Thomas Cohen, Darrell English, Rick Frazier, Kevin Marshall, Tim McLaughlin, David Ross, Catherine Coffey, Joe Stansby. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Connor. All right, is there approval of the agenda? I've heard that there are a few changes that need to be made, and then I have one. Laura?
Yes, so I'd like to move 7C to 9C for discussion.
Okay, and 9C, we are actually going to be moving that up to just after the consent. We have some people that can only stay an hour. Okay, any other changes? Okay,
Approval
Is that
as modified.
thank you. Is it-
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, the first item is our public hearing. Ian?
Thank you, Chairperson. This is regarding the amendment to the UPWP. This is largely an administrative amendment to put language in the UPWP to allow us to conduct research in pursuit of a potential regional transportation authority. So it's administrative in the sense that the UPWP, the Unified Planning Program, already allows us to conduct research if instructed to by you all, and you instructed us to do the research. So it's tying up an administrative lacuna really to add it, but we're having a public hearing in case a member of the public wishes to comment on that.
Okay, do we have anybody here from the public that would like to comment on this public hearing? If so, if you could please stand. Back there. Okay, not seeing anyone. We'll close the public hearing. And then are we going to vote on it now, or we're at the next meeting?
Part of the package.
That's right, okay. All right, moving down to item number 6. I do know we have some public comments that were sent in and also here that would like to speak. First, if we could read the public comments that you have, Collie. Yes, thank you. Like, where'd she go?
Yeah. Okay, from John Bryant. He states, I am one of the many against a regional authority for our region. Citizens have been taxed enough and it is time to stop. Tax the businesses that come in and create all the traffic, not the people who have lived here for many generations. Tax the home builders and tax all the people who drive through the area that go north and south of our homes. I will say our biggest problem is due to not having the ability to say no more homes. The home builders are our biggest problem. Tax them. Thank you for listening. To John Brandt. Next, we have a call from Max Steinbaum. Max Steinbaum, a college student at UMW, called to relay comments and concerns about trail improvements to the VCR Trail and the Smith Run Trail, and hopes for trail connectivity to the River Road Trip. Lastly, from Molly Bose, I live on Lower Caroline Street. Several years ago, there was some work done on the streets which revealed what appeared to be cobblestones. It was covered up again, but the restoration or addition of cobblestones throughout Fredericksburg may be an aesthetic and safety double win. Not only would cobblestones, possible sections even versus entire streets, be beautiful and be an additional historic draw for visitors, but they could help address the citywide issues with speeding that, at least in Darbytown, are currently being discussed with the local police, how to address given challenges with staffing, catching speeders, the idea of setting up speed signs throughout the city, arguably not very attractive, how to pay for and maintain the speed signs, etc. Given the above thoughts, what role might FAMPO play in possibly restoring or installing cobblestone streets or even sections of cobblestone? A section could serve as a beautiful traffic calmer downtown. Thank you. That's all the public comments we received in advance.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak?
Good evening, Chairperson Bonte, members of the Policy Committee, and Hollis. I'm Al Watkins. I live on England Run Lane in the George Washington District of Stafford County. Regarding the potential amendments to the Community Engagement and Equity Plan, please consider how important it is to properly receive the public comment. As a member of the public, I believe it's vitally important to hear out the concerns of our community. The amendment requires the board to responsibly read through each message that would be included in the agenda packet. And though I believe that most here would take the amount to read those messages, there is no guarantee that that action by each board member would necessarily take place. I know from personal experience that some, but not all of my emails and other attempts to communicate with some elected leaders in my own county are ignored or receive no reply whatsoever. I fully understand that there are heavy demands upon the time of each member of this policy committee, and understand the demands upon FAMPO staff to make sure that each public comment is communicated. Even asking the FAMPO staff to read a brief summary of each message runs the risk of leaving out points of emphasis that the writer intended. I've experienced that issue as well, though I firmly consider my long-windedness to be the cause of that. I urge you to reconsider the first part of the amendment. And regarding the potential regional transportation authority, I am glad that FAMPO staff and our local leaders have reached out to both the Senate and the House down in Richmond. I believe that only by the FAMPO Policy Committee and our friends in Richmond working together, communicating and compromising, can the RTA in our region become a reality. Independently, without input from FAMPO, all recent attempts by our state government to create an RTA of a region have not succeeded. Further, without FAMPO's input, the specifics of those previous Senate and House attempts excluded the insight and the research that FAMPO can provide. A joint effort by all interested parties will hopefully be successful and bring about the needed additional funding our region needs. And finally, if I can make one more request, with the potential future river crossing and parkway project being such a major project and likely the most impactful, it would be very helpful to the interested members of our communities to get monthly updates or reports regarding the work being accomplished by the consultant, highlighting what procedures or steps that have been taken and which information they have obtained in the spirit of transparency. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Al. Are there other speakers?
Madam Chair, my name is Nicholas Kwanowski. I'm CTAC Chair, and I wanted to relay the recent votes at the CTAC meeting on Wednesday. I'm sorry, I don't have the date off the top of my head. 8th, thank you. So we discussed and voted on the changes to the Community Engagement Equity Plan. Unfortunately, it's going to be a bit of a repeat of what Mr. Watkins said. We specifically did not endorse the change to public comment procedure at the policy committee. The concerns were regarding, again, what Mr. Watkins said of concerns that it limits access for the public. Evening meetings are difficult to make, and those are our concerns. However, we did endorse the change to the public comment period. We saw the logic of that. And we also endorsed action on the RTA and the draft legislation.
All right, thank you. Are there other public comments?
I'd like to say something. Tim Welsh, Spotsylvania County, I'm vice chair. And I just want to talk about the transportation of Spotsylvania. I don't know how big of fans they are of it, but y'all are in a Dillon rule state. Okay. Commonwealth Virginia only gives you the tools that you're allowed to do by state law. So imagine the state of Virginia is like your father. He's got a big old toolbox. Okay. He can fix a lot of things. And you're the little kid, plastic,
They do.
plastic pair of pliers, a plastic screwdriver, a plastic hammer. And your father wants to give you a real tool. Okay. I think you need to take the real tool. You might not be ready to use it, but I think you need to get it while he's going to give it to you. You're going to grow up. You're going to need the tool. Okay. You look at Northern Virginia, they have funded $3 billion for the B over the next 3 years through their transportation authority. Richmond, 3 years old, $300 million that they're funding. And they've committed $100 million to 6-lane Interstate 64 through New Kent County. We are so behind the ball here in Fredericksburg that we need, and let me tell you another example. My family's farmed here since before Virginia was a state, okay? That's how long I've been here. Until this year, I never took a farm subsidy because I never believed in it. My great uncle farmed a slaughter pen farm. Never liked the federal government because all of his buddies got kicked out of EPL in 1941. But this year, my brother who works at the John Deere dealer, he said, man, you got to take a subsidy. He said, everybody else is doing it. And because I'm doing the work, I'm doing the same work that my neighbor's doing, but he's getting 50 grand. And I didn't do it because I didn't want to. It goes against my morals. I go against our morals about taxes and all that. But in order to compete with the other localities, that's what we're going to have to do. I hate taxes. If it was up to me, I'd burn the whole thing to the ground because I think it's gotten out of hand. But if we're going to fix these transportation issues, number one, we got to work together as a region, not county, and city, county. We got to get together and look at it from a big picture standpoint.
30 seconds.
We have relied on the federal government to get us across the river at I-95. And we need to look at other options. We need to grid the system. I can go on all day, but when it comes down to authority, I think if you have the opportunity to get it, you need to get it. And devil's in the details, I know, and I'll let you all work those out. But if you got the opportunity, get it. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. Other public comments? Anybody back here? Okay, thank you then. We will close public comment. I appreciate all of you that came and spoke. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda, everything minus item 7C. Is there a motion?
Madam, an agenda, but item B for discussion.
C.
You're moving B.
C.
C.
This is community engagement.
Second.
Oh, sorry.
You want to pull B, so you're going to pull B from the consent. We've already pulled C. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Okay, discussion. Okay, all those in favor of the consent agenda minus B and C, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we'll go to 7B first. Resolution 2411. Mr. Kelly?
Just a quick comment based on the comments that were made here, and I apologize I wasn't at the last meeting. Normally, if somebody submits a letter and requests that it be read into the record, we are somewhat and have always been obligated to do that and to just immediately say that we're not going to, and I think does need to be modified in some form or fashion. And the other point is you guys are going to be facing a lot of, you heard some of it this evening, both with regards to a river crossing, to transportation authority. I think you're going to want a robust community engagement. At a minimum, I think that it would be important that if it's the board's pleasure not to read them all, at least say, or give something to the public and to board stating, you received 10 letters, topics were this, and or on specific topics, 5 people spoke, again, to at least have some information out there rather than not reading them at all. That would be my general suggestion.
Just a point of clarity. Two things. The one is we don't frequently get the sentence, please will you read this out? We normally just get a letter and we take it upon ourselves to bring it to you. The second point is that the process that's proposed now is that three things be done. First thing is that the correspondence we receive gets attached to your emailed agenda that goes out ahead of time. Then when we print these agendas, we will print a copy of that letter and attach it to this agenda. And then thirdly, the public engagement officer will read a summary, but not the whole letter. So that's the proposal that's in front of you. I'm not saying whether you should do it or not do it. I'm just saying, just to clarify, the proposal is to read a summary of those letters instead of reading the whole letter.
Ian,
Yes, Crystal?
so will you also have them attached on the website? So when you click on the agenda, you'll be able to see them on there too?
If we receive them by the time the agenda goes out, yes.
So, and then what's the cutoff time? So like, for example, our board, like our agenda goes out on a Friday, for example, and then we submit, they can start submitting public comments after that agenda goes out. And then the cutoff time is Monday, I think at 2 or 5 p.m. I can't remember. And then we get an email with all of those attached.
We could do that on the Monday morning. What we
So
currently,
that way we just don't miss anything, because
Sure.
people can comment like on Saturday or Sunday, then we would not necessarily get it if it wasn't attached. You have to send out another email the day, you have to put a timeline, like cut off public comments by a certain time.
we can happily do it on the morning of the policy committee meeting. If
Okay.
that's what the members would prefer.
Okay, Jason?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not crazy about doing the summary. I do think that people deserve to have their letters read. Just to give you an example of what we do in the city, yes, evening meetings are hard to make, but at the same time, we give more time to those who come, and we give a 5-minute time limit to in-person comments, and I believe a 3-minute time limit to letters. And I think that that's still a better path forward here, only because, as one of the commenters mentioned, summarizing it then puts I don't want to say power, but you can lose a lot in translation in the summary, and I think that people who take the time to submit something, as long as it's not copy paste. There have been times where, I mean, maybe everyone's seen that, where a group of people get together and they copy paste something. If that happens, you read it once and that's fine. No one needs to be held hostage by 20 people copy pasting something. The meeting doesn't need to be held hostage, I mean, but I do think that individual thoughtful letters do deserve to be read out, but maybe with a shorter time limit. So I'd also like to get people's thoughts on that approach as well.
Matt?
Just clarification on our policy, the other aspect of it on written letters, we only go 45 minutes max on letter reading. So we can get 30 letters, we limit them to 3, and once 45 minutes is up, they stop it. But
Appreciate that.
I don't know, that does mean certain letters don't get read.
It does. Excuse me.
Oh, sure.
No, I appreciate the clarification, and it's I think a rarity that maybe we'll encounter once a year, but I do think it is worth it for people to have their comments read in a public forum.
All right, other thoughts?
I'll say something to that. I agree. I think the concerns I'm hearing expressed are that people don't feel like their voices will be heard, or that they can verify that their voices have been heard and everyone has read things. And if we're honest, we all know that that's an issue sometimes where something gets overlooked. And so I don't mind continuing to read them in the meetings. I think that's just fine. The summary, while it makes sense logistically, to me is a concern because it sort of reinterprets the voice of the person who is trying to say something. So I would just say, read the letters in the event there are redundancies, right? That's my opinion.
Well, my proposal.
Oh, I know, but you're looking at me, so
I'm
I'm
just-
across the
I'm
table.
just doing
too.
the job,
Same
right?
with you.
Madam Chair, you have something else?
I was gonna move to.
Oh,
specific.
because I think we talked about this and this is why it kind of came forward. We felt like, you know, there was a lot that we were trying to accomplish in the meetings and that we were able to read the comments ahead of time. And I actually like to read them and ponder them and look things up sometimes versus just getting them at the meeting. So I'm totally fine having them emailed to us. This is the only committee I sit on where we actually still read. During COVID, we read them out loud at board meetings, but this is the only committee I'm part of or have ever been part of that reads all the public out loud. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the current proposal. And I think that it'll help us get through a lot more and take in a lot more public comment. And I think it still affords the opportunity for those sitting here. And I do see a lot of the public show up sometimes and they leave because there's so much going on. And as the river crossing comes forward, I think, you know, it'll be easy for people to do online comments and it provides an area where we can sit down and read them. So I'm fine with the current proposal and I'll support that.
Okay, any other, Monica?
Thank you. I just want to clarify one thing. I don't, at least for myself, I wasn't thinking that it was one or the other, like read it ahead of time or just listen to it in the meeting. Obviously, we should read them ahead of time when they're sent to us ahead of time. So I just want to clarify that.
Agreed.
Yes, Chris.
Yeah, and sorry, I think I missed the last meeting. It's like you missed one and geez, everything happened. What are we trying to figure out? Do we really have that many letters that come in? Because I've been on here for a long time and we really don't have that many. I mean, we had 2 tonight, was it?
Yeah.
So
I
what problem
think
are we trying to solve?
Items, we were trying to get down to the meat of our business because we have had some very long meetings. And when you read public comment, it takes more time. And some of us, as Crystal just said, we do things differently in Stafford. So we came up with an idea of having them submitted with our with the packet. And then also having it, included with our agenda, our printed out agenda. So.
I'm sorry, but could
Sure.
we address it when it becomes a problem? Because I just don't see it being, did I miss, at the last meeting, do we have a lot or something?
I
I think it was,
think, yeah, we did have a few.
For
it
that.
was like
Yeah.
a 30-minute.
Okay, then I probably missed that one too. I don't.
Yeah,
for
I
that.
don't think you were there.
But I just don't, if people take time and not the copy and paste, dear, whoever, we all get millions of those. But if you do take the time to actually write it, I think that we should at least take the time to read them into the record. But I do like the idea of having a time limit on it because we can have issues that will take that and, and really stretch that time out. And I don't want to take up too much time with that. So I would say limit it to 30 minutes total, but read them out. A summary, I think, it doesn't do it justice, and I don't think it's right to do that. And we just need to make sure that whoever's reading it does a great job and just gets right through it.
Okay, let me go to Lori.
Well, and
back to Matt.
just what did happen at one of the past meetings is the letter went beyond the 3 minutes. And so it just cuts off there. Now, we get them, right? You can read the rest, but for public record, it kind of just cut off. Right? So if you do you remember that one?
Yeah, but I mean, it's emailed into this part of the agenda.
Right, but I'm saying for public consumption, if somebody was here, you get some of the letter and then it's done. Whereas if it's summarized, the entire issue could be encapsulated in that amount of time.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
It could be, but the other issue you have is that, like at our meetings, we have 3 minutes.
Mhm.
So if you are reading from a prepared script and you don't get it done, you can then pass it out to the board for that. And it can actually be added into the record in its entirety. So I just think if we're trying to streamline what we're doing, set a time limit per letter. But I don't want to really muzzle anybody at all.
Okay, Matt.
To that point, if 30 minutes is the number, why don't we go ahead and say that written respondents direct the board will take up 3 minutes of time, 3 minutes per letter. We need to make sure that's written out so people, when they read it, understand.
Yeah.
And after that, it goes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
Is that fair? All right, Jason.
yeah. So
You want to make a motion?
yes, that's exactly where I was going. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I move that the portion of strategies that was crossed out that says read by staff be restored. And then with an additional sentence that reads, letters shall be limited to 3 minutes per letter and a total time of 30 minutes. Otherwise, kept as is.
Can you make one more
Oh.
exception, and then I'll second it, that they're read after the public who's here gets to comment?
Absolutely, yes, yes, to be read after
Yeah,
in-person comments.
okay.
Yes, except the friendly amendment.
Just a question of clarity, Madam Chair, is the 30 minutes including the members? who
No,
speak?
30 minutes of letters.
30 minutes
Of the
just for the
letter.
letters?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Done?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right. Yes.
But that's something that might help for the future. Jeff Boros with BWRC, that you may want to address the letters on a first come, first served basis. But if you have a time limit, you don't want staff to have to decide which letter.
Just
Yep.
timestamp it when it comes in on the
Yes.
system.
Oh,
Okay.
great.
All right,
Point.
I accept that friendly amendment as well.
All right, great discussion. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great conversation. Thank you. Thank you for CTAC being here as well. All right, moving right along.
See,
9C, and
Yes.
that is our Regional Transportation Authority, which is why a lot of people are here. I will turn this over to Ian and want to thank, I believe I saw Tara Durant.
don't you recognize that all the those that are in it?
Right.
Sorry.
I was just. I'll start down here. Hi, Delegate Cole, gonna call you Josh Cole. Welcome, congratulations. Yes, Deontay Diggs, new supervisor for the George Washington District in Stafford County. Senator Durant, former Delegate Durant, congratulations. Senator-elect, whatever. Okay, yeah, I guess for another, 40 days? Okay, and then Senator McPike.
Yeah.
Yes, so thank you for driving down the interstate to be with us tonight. Hopefully it was
Always easy, every day that ends in Y.
right. Okay, moving on to their discussion about the RTA, Ian.
Thank you, Chairperson. As you know, we've been talking about this quite some time, and we've looked at this picture because it, in one picture, shows you what's happening around us. The mustard yellow color, the green color, and the red color are the three existing regional transportation authorities around us, and the blue is potentially a transportation authority that could be instituted in our region, and that would cover the 5 jurisdictions, the 3 FAMPO jurisdictions, Stafford, Spotsylvania, and the city of Fredericksburg, and then the 2 rural counties of King George and Caroline. So we're that hole in the donut. We don't currently have a transportation authority, and a number of our colleagues in the State General Assembly have attempted in the past to create one, and so we've had a discussion for the last 3 or 4 months about whether we would support that or not and what it could look like. Next slide. So there, I've just said at the bottom, that's the map there without us. The hole's now not filled. We have all the congestion problems, but none of the funding that the 3 regional transportation authorities have. And that really would be a good motivation to institute a similar transportation authority in the region. Next slide. So points to consider. I've had the slide up before with various names for the authority. If we're going to proceed, we should pick a name. Interestingly, I gave this presentation in Stafford County, and I also gave the presentation in King George County. And in both cases, the most vocal members of those 2 boards said, please, can we have the Rappahannock Transportation Authority and not the Fredericksburg Area Transportation Authority? So I amended the draft legislation to call it the Rappahannock Transportation Authority, but whatever, you can call it, you know, the whatever you want to. Next slide. Then this is more serious. The representatives that we would have that would be on the board and would vote So the black numbers there indicate what this proposal could look like. And as I've said at all of the previous meetings, if the policy committee or GWRC board wish to change these numbers, that's entirely, to make a recommendation to the General Assembly, that's entirely up to you. But as it stands, it would have 2 per jurisdiction for the 5 jurisdictions, 1 representative from the Virginia House, 1 from the Senate, and the representative of the CTB that resides normally in this area. The 4 others would be non-voting, and those are officials, VDOT, DLPT, 1 FAMPO, 1 for WRC. Again, those are non-voting members. Next slide. Voting. With Senator McPike here, I stole some of your bill and included that layout. So the representatives sitting on the board of such an authority would need to be representative of 4/5 of the population if they wish to vote through particular funding for transportation projects. A single jurisdiction may only veto projects in their own jurisdiction, but not in somebody else's jurisdiction. And then the bottom there, because it's 2 voting members per jurisdiction, we would, in order to calculate that 4/5, we would divide the population of, say, the county or the city in half, so that each member on the board would represent 50% of the population of their jurisdiction. Next slide. We have to have a prioritization process. Without that, what tends to happen is that the allocation of funding to projects becomes very subjective, and often the people who shout loudest get the money, and that we don't think is a really good idea. So we agree that, as is done in most other transportation authorities, that you should have a prioritization methodology based on some objective quantifiable analysis, so that the benefits, etc., and that we could fund highway projects, roadways, transit, bike or pedestrian projects, or combinations of those that we would score, and that those projects should be reflected in a state transportation plan, a regional transportation plan, a long-range type plan from the jurisdictions or localities or whatever. Next slide. Then we talked about how do we fund the authority, and you'll see the first 3, the grantor's tax, the transient occupancy tax, and the state recordation tax, were in the Senate bill from last year. The suggestion is that we looked at these other taxes also, the retail tax and the fuel taxes. We've looked at the fuel taxes as a staff and realized that they are not a good idea for this particular region, for the simple reason that we already have the tax that funds the VRE and related commuter rail expenses. That tax was extended by the General Assembly, in our understanding, to all regions and all counties and cities in Virginia. So there's no longer a gap between one region and another that we could exploit and add a tax. If we did that, we could end up having a situation where the fuel taxes in our region was higher than, say, Richmond. And we think that's not a good idea for our local businesses. So we are suggesting that that is not a good place to look for funding. However, a retail tax, as you'll see in some of the details below, we still think is possible, provided it is not a very high rate, that the rate of a retail tax be kept at a lower rate. Next slide. So last policy committee meeting, our staff asked to do some research on what taxes exist around us in these different categories. If we look at the transient occupancy tax, just say to our members, we did contact your finance department and get numbers from them, and you can see the numbers there for each of our 5 jurisdictions. And we've compared that to other jurisdictions around us. For example, Prince William County, they have a 5% transient occupancy tax, and then 3%, which goes to the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. The highest we can find in Virginia, if we are correct, is in Virginia Beach and Emporia. They're at 11% currently. If we look at the sales taxes, we have a standard 4.3% across the board, which exists, and then a 1% local sales tax. The are some odd ones. The historic triangle, so-called, they've increased that local to 1.5, and then they've added 0.5% in addition to that as a tourism fund contribution to market their local historic and tourist potential. And then the other transportation authorities have a sales tax of 0.7, less than 1%, 0.7. And in our case, the suggestion is that we have 0.5. That's not 1%, is a half of 1% as the sales tax that we could use. And we feel at that level it's quite low in terms of the percentage. So those are the numbers we've got from, just we've double checked by asking the jurisdictions what their numbers are. Next slide. The grantor's tax, we've made some efforts to establish that, and it seems that we don't have a grantor's tax currently in the region. The jurisdictions that we've approached agree with that. The Hampton Roads Transportation Authority uses a 0.06.
What do you mean by grantor's tax?
We have,
Give me an example.
so there is some confusion in the people we've reached out to, the staff of the localities. There's some confusion about this because the recordation tax, when you read the bill, it actually talks about grantor's tax and completely confuses the issue. So there are two separate taxes. We've got the delegates and senators here in the room. Do you want to ask one of them to talk to the grantor's tax? Because I'm sure they could do a better job than I could.
I don't think it's fair to ask them. You guys drafted this, so you looked this up, because I've been down this road before and I want to know what your definition is. You wrote this.
Oh, I don't have a definition to hand. We can get it. These are property taxes, as I understand them.
No. You can't say property tax. Don't even go there.
Okay, well, excuse me, but my foreign understanding of those particular terms might not be correct.
It's a real estate tax.
Like when you sell.
So
your
when you
house,
sell your house, it's a tax.
We all have I want to know what their definition, because I've seen 3 different definitions of this, and every time I see it, somebody's got a different, and we're all gonna have a different term. I want to know what was used to build this that tells us what this means. Because we've heard real estate tax, we've heard taxes that are actually collected in the clerk of the court's office.
They're all the same thing.
No, they're not all the same thing.
Yeah, it's when you sell your house, it's the
Yeah,
fee
yeah,
that
yeah.
gets charged to
Right.
record the deed and the exchange of the real estate.
Which is
So
already in our budgets.
they're talking about increasing it. So this would be an increase to that tax. So.
But they
that's
haven't
what
said
they're-
that yet. They have not given us their definition. I want to hear, we're all comfortable with the definition for something we didn't write. I mean, I didn't write this. Did you?
Okay,
It
I'm
came
gonna
from
call
FAMPO
on Senator McPike. I saw you with your hand up.
I'd love to wade in as my introduction to everything. Happy Monday. So the grantor's tax is defined in the Virginia State Code, and all the sources of any of this conversation would be sourced in the Virginia State Code as your basis for any of those decisions. So it is basically your percentage when you sell or transfer your land and property as a grantor's tax fee, and that's set by what these are between where you live. And yes, they're and then redistributed through localities and the state. And so there's different formulas depending on the state budget in terms of where those split. And that gets to a little bit more complex answer I can't give you. You got to get into the tables of charts, but you'd have to look at the state code in terms of the precise definition.
And everybody's in here is going to be different.
There's an official understanding of it in the state code. It's not my interpretation of it. It's written down.
Everybody's is going to be different.
As I understand it,
No, the tax.
Okay, hang on. Monica had her hand up.
Did you?
I'll just let the discussion continue. I'm not
Okay,
gonna throw
Jason?
questions.
no, I mean, as I understand it from Senator McPike's definition, this is a tax that is assessed per transaction on the transfer of real property. And I think everybody, I mean,
Isn't
I'm seeing head
it
nods.
the recordation tax?
Yes,
Yes, the recordation and the grantor's tax are the same thing.
yes, that was the other point I was gonna make, Madam Chair, is that it is a,
Now, where that money goes is up for debate. Ours went to Hampton Roads, but.
correct, but right, I'm saying for the purposes of definitions, grantor's tax and recordation tax are synonymous.
Right.
Oh, Al,
See, I'm gonna tell you, there's no single definition. I've been down this path before. And everybody's gonna look at this differently, and you look in the budget, you're gonna see them different.
so, okay, if I may,
Yes.
will you please give us Caroline County's definition?
No, nope, I don't know it for sure.
Oh, well,
Because
okay.
I am not a clerk of the court. I know it comes from that office to our budget, monetarily, but I don't know how that's precisely calculated. Meg, do you know how yours is calculated?
No, but I know that we lost money to Hampton Roads a couple of years ago through the budget amendment through the North
It's through the,
Administration.
it's calculated at the state level.
So I think
Yeah.
that really is a recordation tax. We've reached out to your localities and we've got from them feedback on what they have in terms of taxes right now. And there is a recordation tax, portion of which they used to be called the local portion, which they collect when these transactions occur, and a portion that the state takes. And those funds currently go elsewhere, largely to the Hampton Roads Authority. Do not have grantors. I understand. But from the feedback we've got from the 5 jurisdictions.
So
You have a recordation tax. So I'm getting a nod over there, so that is the understanding that
Okay.
everybody has. The recordation tax bill, however, sometimes uses the word grantor in it, which muddies the waters completely. So I read through the act myself, and it mentions grantor in there, which makes it really murky to unpick.
Okay.
Unless you really know what you're talking about.
So Ian, when you talk to all of our budget directors,
Yes.
did you ask them for our recordation
Yes.
tax amounts,
Yes.
not grantors?
So,
Okay,
and they do not have a grantor's tax right now.
okay,
Which is why there's a proposal to add one, because around us, they do have grantor's taxes. We don't have one.
okay. All right, Jason?
And so just a quick glance, and maybe I might direct this question to Senator McPike, speaking of the Virginia Code. It is my understanding, again, very cursory glance, that the buyer pays the recordation tax and the seller pays the grantor's tax. No, okay,
Depends on, sorry, Madam
The
Chair.
term.
Sure.
Depends on the terms of the
Okay.
contract.
okay. I just want to make sure, that's what I'm trying to get, if we're talking definitions, I want to make sure we're all saying the same thing.
Sure.
Point 30. So typically when there are questions like this, there are a couple things that you can do. One of which is, so section 58.1-801 will give you insights into the recordation tax, just sort of like the clerk filing fees of the keeper of the rolls of courts and deeds of lands and the rest of the grantor's tax, and then sort of the tax on the transfer of funds. You'll see that in section 58.1-811. And there are other clarifying things that localities have asked over time, and you'd have to look into the Attorney General's opinions that then clarify differentiation of authorities and different sort of breakdown of things. So there's a couple different areas of the code, both defined in those sections of the tax code, and then in the Attorney General's opinion, which your county attorneys can give you sort of the larger picture of what these mean and how they get applied. So that hopefully will help to muddy the waters a little bit. But those would be the code sections you look to. And then the follow-up would be this sort of the deep dive into Attorney General's opinions, interpretations of it.
Okay, and just for clarity, if you look at page 6 of 16, the code section that Senator McPike just referenced, 58-1-811, contingent expiration and exemptions, that is right there. And then the other one was 801. Well, it's got to be in here because I see references to it. But anyway, moving along, Chris.
Yes, thank you. As this moves along, because I think it's moving along, because last meeting, again, you missed one meeting. Last meeting was just, geez, if this is going to go forward, what is it going to look like? And now it's taken on legs of its own. And I would ask that any legislation that comes is not this ridiculously muddied that you have to get Attorney General's opinions on what was written. I mean, for goodness sake, can it not just be very clear? It's a tax. Do you really need an AG that comes in? And again, they're elected every 4 years. You get one and they could contradict the other. I mean, is it really that difficult to write legislation that says this is what this means and this is what this means? So please, as we move forward with this legislation, can it not be muddied so that a body like us is sitting here 10 years from now going, hey, you know what I think that means? I don't know. We need an AG's opinion on that. That to me is just absolutely ridiculous that you have 3 different opinions and we're trying to figure out what that even means. And even our folks in the county don't, you know, I think that they know what they're talking about, but it's just so confusing, which is absolutely ridiculous. And that's what gives a lot of people a lot of concern when this stuff happens. You're going to have a regional authority with a bunch of this stuff going in it. And what the heck does it all mean? And so I'm just asking, please, let's streamline this as much as we can, please. Us here.
Okay, good point. Lori?
And in that vein, that's why I think this is premature to even talk about having legislation written for this. Nobody knows what this is, or we banter about this. This is a tax. Let's make that very clear. I'm not going to get behind any tax, and the majority of my board won't either, just so you know. But you talked about this being taken away and taken down to Hampton Roads, right? There's been no discussion about clawing that back. Is that gone forever? I mean,
I believe we did talk about that during the recordation tax, if I'm not mistaken, Madam Chair.
Yes, but I don't think that's.
it's not a done deal.
Right.
So why wouldn't we ask for what's ours or what was ours?
I think we have.
This bill literally tries to do that.
It's a new tax.
No, well,
The state portion of the
Senator
recordation.
McKnights draft from, is it a year ago? So, had the recordation tax issue in there and explains, and the General Assembly staff write a financial statement on the bill, and it explains in that financial statement, which I handed out 12 months ago to everyone here, it explains what the recordation tax is, the historicalness of it, how that bill would bring it back to this region from where it is used now.
So in order to get that back, we have to tax our citizens more.
No, but you need to have a mechanism in order to get it back.
Okay, but we're taxing them more by adding this and a sales tax and.
You don't have to have all of these. Remember, these are ones that we were asked to research. So nobody says you have to anything. You can remove one, right?
Okay, Senator McPike and then Monica.
I'd like to more formally, Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity just to say hi.
Okay.
Thank you for this conversation. And to address the gentleman's comments earlier, as a dealer in real estate, I'm not your father to tell you what you do, but what you do have the opportunity is to define whether you want a hammer, a screwdriver, or a wrench, and what's right for this area, and work together. What I do know is I have family here. My dad lives here, my mother, I'm in Fredericksburg, I'm in Spotsylvania often. And what I do know is you're an hour away from wherever you are. And that is true for time in, time out, and so many issues. And so it really is, the political reality is that you have our finance and appropriations chair is from Hampton Roads, and you're not getting that money back. Tell you like it is right now. You're not getting that money back. So you've got to be creative about how you construct something that you can help direct. You can help direct and craft our future together. It's a quality of life issue, and this is one way to do it, is to say, okay, we're going to try to carve up some of our portion to bring it back home to have it work for us. And that's really what this is about. It's having that discussion and figuring what the right fit is for this community. And so I appreciate the opportunity to say hi. I grew up in this area, and I just want to make sure that that gap within the largest corridor of transportation that is up in New York to Florida, you see the place every day like I do. That's not going to change. And relying on the CTV is going to be a futile effort. If you look at the billions and billions of backlog over the transportation horizon, this area is not going to move the needle one iota until we start to get creative. We understand that we're all in this together and it impacts all of our families. And that's the bottom line. I appreciate, I know there's a lot of technical issues, but it's essentially the essence of this is to creatively, without really pissing off, don't put that in the meeting minutes.
Are you
The
recorded?
appropriators.
It's gonna be on your commercial.
Oh, that is also very important. So politically and geographically, we got to figure out and work together to make it work for our region. So I appreciate the time.
Yeah, and I appreciate you confirming that we're not going to get that money back, because that was always
I
my
will
sense.
tell you
It-
right now, not gonna.
They're not going to get it back. So that's for starters. Okay, I'm going to go to Monica, Kathy, and then Crystal.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll be quick. And I just wanted to thank everyone here again for being here. I mean, we have people from the state across the aisle here to help us figure out solutions to longstanding problems. You know, to me, this is not premature. It makes sense right now. We're maybe a little behind the ball to just go ahead and lay out the toolkit and say, what do we have? And that's what we're doing. So it's not, oh, we're going to just take it all and force these things, you know, to happen against anyone's will, right? Because we have different opinions. But we do need to look at it and make it make sense for us in this area. So I support continuing to look at this. I appreciate the work that you all have done. Thank you, everyone who's here today, to continue to help us find solutions. That's all I wanted to say. I feel like it got a little heated and we just need to find solutions and keep looking into this. So.
Okay, Kathy.
Okay, Kathy Bender representing King George as one of the two rural localities that don't think we're going to see anything from this. I will say one thing that I've heard from my board and our citizens is we don't appreciate people at the state mandating on us without even giving us a say. And Mr. Cole, Mr. McKnight, put this legislation without any of us knowing about it, and we didn't appreciate that. And I just want to let you know that we didn't like that this was imposed or possibly imposed without actually getting all of our input. And you're supposed to represent the citizens of Virginia, and I don't feel on that time you did, and when both of you at different times proposed this bill. So for King George, we've raised for different reasons our citizens' taxes, and in the local election that just happened, there was a mandate on stop raising our taxes. So I know our citizens will look at why this is another tax and what are we getting out of it? Because all of this is going to go to Stafford, Spotsy, and Fredericksburg. So I need to see exactly what's it going to do for King George, because it doesn't look like it's going to do much for us.
Okay, Crystal.
Okay, everyone knows one of my strengths and weaknesses is just telling you like it is. So hopefully nobody's feelings get hurt. So I know over the last 2 years, and you touched on it a little bit, there was legislation that was introduced and the board nor did FAMPO know anything about it. And I think we all found varying challenges with both pieces of that legislation. There were issues with it that we did not feel like we wanted it to move forward. So we went into defense mode of making sure that it got stopped because we felt like it was not going to solve the problems that we were trying to accomplish in the area. So both of those pieces of legislation, all the boards, I think in FAMPO felt that there were challenges and it should not move forward as it was. And there were limited mechanisms for us to edit it or amend it because it felt like we were not getting any communication from the state legislators who introduced it at that time. So we very much appreciate that you guys are all here today because I think we all acknowledge that we have transportation challenges in this region. And I think all of our goal is the same, is to get more funding to help the people who are commuting in the Fredericksburg regional or the Rappahannock regional area. So I do appreciate that. So I want to I think what we all need to do is just get over what happened the last 2 times. And if we could have everybody in the room have a commitment to working together instead of having something just placed in the General Assembly that won't benefit us. And I'll tell you just really quickly on Stafford's end, and I know you guys will be coming to our legislative dinner next week after that. And one of the things that we're going to be asking you to do is to help us get legislation at the state level to allow us to go to referendum to add a 1% or up to a 1% sales tax to help us build schools, because cost to compete, we're not getting that. We have major construction in the area, even though we're not approving rezonings. Our limitations on proffers are there. I could beat the same dead horse constantly, but we have so many needs in our community to build schools. We can't keep raising taxes in order to do it on the real estate and personal property. So we're going to be coming to you guys asking for that mechanism So when we saw the fact that sales tax could be increased from the transportation side, that becomes a challenge because Stafford could end up almost 1% or 0.75% higher than anybody else. And we don't want that because that would definitely hurt Stafford more than any other locality. So I just wanted to say that since you guys are all in the room. So I think for the purposes of today, what I would like to focus on for the rest of our time, and obviously I'm only one person in this room, is restructuring the conversation to, I liked what you said, Senator McPike, and I know, and I'll give you a little bailout here, because I know when you submitted your bill last year, I believe there was one board member in Stafford who may have encouraged you to do that, who had not spoken to her board, nor anyone at FAMPO, and we had.
On our legislative agenda for Stafford.
Yeah, well, it was actually to stop an RTA, but she took it and said that we wanted an RTA. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But to reshape the conversation and to, instead of adding additional taxes right now, can we just agree on a mechanism to get what was given away back to our localities? Because it's 10 million, I think it's $10 million over 10 years, it's like $1 million a year. If we could just start there with a mechanism to get that money back, I think that's something that we could potentially get behind without instituting new taxes.
Okay, I'm going to go to Matt, Monica, Lori, and Jason.
I'm going to step back a little bit. This region is looking to double its population. And our road system and transportation system is a mess now. Throughout the current process we have with the state, we at one time had the most congested area on I-95 on the East Coast. When Smart Scale first came out, both our I-95 projects, due to the formula, which included if you had extra money to put into your projects, you got extra points. The most congested section of I-95 and our 295 projects ranked 182 and 185 out of 200 and some odd projects. The southbound project was not picked up because of Smart Scale. It was picked up because the CTB reached down to the bottom and pulled it up. Northbound project is a totally outside of Smart Scale. That went to a whole different funding game. We have gotten little projects done that we all love and adore in our little areas, and we keep talking about what's in it for me, which I have to say drives me nuts. I have been on this board for a long time. I have voted for projects and worked with King George. I've worked with Stafford. I've worked with Spotsylvania, and I've worked with Caroline because I realized 301 is just as important as Route 3 and Route 1 is in moving traffic in this region. And Fredericksburg has voted accordingly in the interest of the region because, frankly, for the city of Fredericksburg, there's no significant projects right now I can think of in the city of Fredericksburg that's really going to change the dynamic. I understand that therefore there are projects in Stafford, Spotsylvania, King George, and Caroline that I will support because I think they have positive impact for the region. And we kind of tend to lose that. We just spent hundreds of millions of dollars on the CD roads and the extensions on 95, on the hot lane extensions. Project, by the way, that originated here at FAMPO, not at the state level. We came up with that project first. We've now built it. And if we look at our studies, within 5 to 6 years, we are going to be right back to where we are today with regards to traffic movement. Talk about taxes. We don't want to raise any more taxes. We don't want to do any more taxes. It's a terrible thing, taxes. Let's take a think and step back and think what's going to happen to our regional economies when nobody can frickin' move in this region. Then where are you going to go ahead and get the money to pay for your police and fire? When nobody wants to be here because it's so damn congested. Most of us here have been to, with our Chamber of Commerce, their transportation forums. And we hear over and over and over from the businesses that operate here that their biggest pain in the butt is having their employees and their transport stuck on the highways and roads in this region. And they're tired of it. We have been talking about this since I've been on this board. And we get to this point, and then we start arguing about what's in it for me. I'm not going to raise taxes. And our roads continue and our transportation systems continue to basically fall on themselves. Said this a number of times, and this is our fault. We cannot provide the necessary transportation to support the comp plans of this region. That is a fact. If we don't do something to even the playing field for funding for significant regional projects, you want to complain about recordation tax, you want to talk about what issues you have with raising taxes a few cents now, wait till the next 10 years if we don't do something about transportation in this region and see what you're going to be doing. It's going to be a hell of a lot worse if we sit there and do nothing and not take advantage of an opportunity that everybody else is taking advantage of, and we sit here and continue to debate about it. I'm going to piggyback on one other thing. I realize that there are significant transportation issues with regard to secondary roads in Stafford County and issues on 301 in King George County and what's going on in Caroline County and farther in the section thing. And I understand those needs of the counties and stuff like that. And that's great and wonderful. But the bottom line is, at this point in the ball game, 2 years ago, VDOT acknowledged we cannot put enough pavement down to take care of our transportation issues. We've got to shift our thinking, which is transit, trains, which is everything else, which is buses and everything else. And I know once we start talking about this, everybody starts going, no, we don't, everything else. No, I didn't. Because those are just as critically important as roads are. In fact, they've become more important than roads are. They have. And we don't have the infrastructure and the system in place to deal with it, and we need to have it. So no, I have not blown my argument. I'm just basically saying we still need the money. We need to look at shifting a little bit of the emphasis and not being totally on asphalt, because we can't do it. We can't build ourselves out of this. We've got to find different ways to move people. That's still transportation, but all of it comes down to money. And frankly, transit is harder to fund than anything else right now. I mean, that's every transit organization is freaking having problems with funding, because most of it all goes to roads and or now maintenance, which is maintenance is a big thing. But the bottom line is, we can sit here and talk about the little things again, for me, I think about the fourth or fifth time, or we can start saying, what do we seriously need to do to put the transportation infrastructure we need to at least try to move us a little bit farther forward? Because if we continue down the road we're doing now, we're going to continue to get our little projects. We're all going to sit here and go, hooray, hooray, we got some small projects. Isn't that great and wonderful? But we're not getting the projects we want. And I said this when we started down this smart scale. I said, I know what was going to happen. We spent, before anybody else did, FAMPO was the first MPO that sat down and said, let's stop dickering about what everybody wants and start looking at what do we got to do to move regional traffic. And Chris, you were around, Jeff, you were around back in those days. And we were the ones that came with the whole concept of prioritization. What are the most important projects that regions need to fund? That's what we need to be looking at. And what Smart Scale has kind of done is we started with that, and then, and I said this was going to happen, we started going, how do we game the system? So all of a sudden the focus went away from what do we really need to, oh my God, if we throw a sidewalk in here, we shift this over here, we do this and do this, we can get funding. I couldn't believe sitting in my first meeting after the first round of Smart Scale and being told by our then executive director, oh my God, next time we got to put in all our trails projects because all these trails projects got funded. That's where we need to put our focus. Then we'll get the money. But that's not what we need. We need to focus on what we really need, and we're not going to get it unless we find money to leverage with. However we do it, we got to, and I'll leave it at that.
I agree with everything you said, every single thing. And you were right back then, but at that point in time, and I was on FAMPO, I was kind of on and off, people weren't ready to do that then. And I don't know if some of the localities sitting around the table now are ready for it, but you're absolutely correct. We cannot build ourselves out of what is in our comp plans. Look at our comp plans and projects that have been approved. And not a lot in Stafford because we have said no over the last 5 years. Okay, I lost track of, were you next? Thank you. Okay, Monica.
So I'll keep this really short. I just wanted to make sure I was remembering correctly because Senator McPike had I contacted you maybe about the bill when it was submitted because we did have something on our agenda, but we didn't have formal position. So I did go back at that. That was what had happened. The communication from Anthony Tweak and requesting feedback from the board. A few of us had responded, but I did just want to say I appreciated that because you went out of your way to make sure that you were trying to get the feedback from our board, even though you had gone ahead and written the bill sort of proactively by just looking at what we're interested in. So I just want to clarify that there. What actually happened. That's it. That's all I had to say.
All right, thank you. I think, Chris, were you next? No,
yes, ma'am.
Jason? Okay,
And Lori was before.
okay,
Oh, actually, I think you said Lori
okay,
first.
thank
Oh.
you. All right,
Well, so, I appreciate all of everybody here and everybody's perspective, and I'm respectful of that. And I don't disagree with some of the things that are being said here, but, I don't think we can claw back any money. I think that's what you said. It's gone. That's a done deal. So
Created RTA.
We're going to continue to send more recordation to
Yeah.
Hampton Roads, if I'm not mistaken.
is that right?
So, Madam Chair, I would say the reason why the tactic funds, it's in several of your legislative agendas for several years, is dealing with the grantor's tax. And one creative way is to try to do that by leveraging some of your dollars and saying, we're in this just like you are, Hampton Roads. Why should we treat it differently is your best argument, putting forward getting your investment back and applying it to your local needs, driven by you. That's why it's crafted that way. Politically, is what I'll say. I will say it will be very challenging to say that's my mine and I want it back. So it's more of a yes and conversation than a you can't have that. So that's what we're trying to have some value added conversations and yes and conversations to other regional state lawmakers who also we need their support collaboratively, right? That's really what it's about.
okay, and
So-
I see, hang on. Yeah.
Collaborate, I carried legislation on a specific last year, so those legislators who are in a regional transit authority, they're not going to weigh in on this because they're insulated from it. So their transportation, recreation funds are not being grabbed. So then now you have an appropriations chair, both House and Senate side, they're in that region, so it's not going to happen because they're not going to be able to overcome that challenge. Plus, the other legislators that just don't have that competing interest, they're already being protected from this perspective. So only those localities that are not in a transportation authority are weighing in and saying, we want our money back.
Right.
And so that made it very difficult to move forward from that perspective. I hope that.
Yeah.
It's a complicated issue.
So that just, my other point is that, what the discussions that we've had around this table in previous meetings has been, well, it's going to happen to us. And I don't like feeling like you all are going to do something to us without us being consulted. All right. And so that's been the driving force. Well, it's going to happen to us. And I'm like, well, why does it have to happen to us? Why don't we go to our legislators and tell them we don't want that? Now, Spotsylvania is in the minority, at least my vote is on this subject. But I don't like having the feeling of it's going to happen to us. So let's make the terms of the deal. You wouldn't like that either if the feds came in and said that. And that's how I'm feeling in this realm right now. So whether we like it or not, it's a tax, it's more taxes. I know, Matt, taxes are a reality. I got it. We increased can you go to the last slide with the amounts of the different taxes in the region? I think it was the last slide.
Right here?
Yes.
I mean, our our transient occupancy tax got raised already, then you're talking about another 1%.
I think if you
On
look
this.
at those, Lori, I think a lot of people have raised them over the last couple of years. And
Mhm.
we had to too. I mean, we had a 9-cent tax increase in Stafford, 9 cents.
If you go back one more slide, sorry, the table that shows you all the different taxes, can you go to that one? There. If you look at that, the transient occupancy tax doesn't bring in a huge amount of money. So if you wanted to cancel one and you wanted to cancel that one, it wouldn't make a huge difference if you removed it, because there you can see of all the potential items, it's the one that brings in the least money. So if you want to start cutting, cut it, because if you want to use the transient occupancy tax for counting needs, it's fine, cut it. The proposal here removes all the fuel taxes because that money is needed for VRE and some other transportation projects. So we've zeroed it out as well because we think that money is already spoken for. The point is, it's not a big deal to change this. You can remove that transient occupancy tax from the deal.
Lori, do you have anything else?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Jason.
Jason.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So when I look at this, that saying of, running government like a business comes to mind. And I think of the R&D portion of a business. Like if you're in a tech firm, you've got this portion set aside and it's an investment. And this investment is made so that you can grow something bigger. We're already on the growing something bigger part here in the region. I actually went back and I looked at the DC to RVA high-speed rail and the report that came out of that. And right now, the last report that was agreed upon showed 4 new, what they're calling interstate corridor trains stopping in DC, Alexandria, Fredericksburg, and Richmond. And then 5 new Amtrak Northeast regional trains. And that's daily. And that, plus what's happening with VRE, I don't even think that, for example, Weldon Cooper population models are taking that into account when they're talking about the growth in this area. Yet doubling our population, I think we're going to be looking at more than that even. It is that extreme, I believe. The Rappahannock regional area, or PDC 16, whatever you want to call it. We are we're really getting to a crisis point. And this is a way to pool small amounts of money from a very large pot to give us something that we need desperately. And to the point of the rural counties, I think that there are a lot of regional projects that might not be in your localities, but still benefit your residents, just as it would be in Fredericksburg. As Matt had said, I don't expect most of these projects to come into the city limits. I don't. I don't think that's going to happen just because we're such a small land portion of this region. But I do expect those projects to have a benefit on our residents because our residents either go to these other localities or they benefit from the second order effects of the reduced traffic in the locality in which they reside. And I think the same would happen for the rural counties as well. I think it will happen for all of them. So I really hope that we can continue to move forward on this and move forward on this tonight because we are at the point of pre-file in Richmond. And we do need to have something that if we're going to submit something, I think now is the time.
Okay, Chris?
Wow. All right. I don't have a time limit, right? There's no 3 minutes on this.
What was Matt's time limit?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I want Matt's time. Okay, first of all, whether it happens or it doesn't happen, there's so many, it happens to us. If you go through schools, if you go through social services, look what the state did to us when it comes to our sheriffs and all of the ridiculous policies that came out of Richmond. I'm not here to argue with them. I appreciate them being here. I'm not here to You know, we'll talk about all those other stuff another day. Right now, we're on the RTA and what is going to benefit the region.
Yes.
We have lots of problems. And I heard this exact same thing when VRE funding came up. If not VRE funding, then what? Well, we got VRE funding, we did some things, and then we're back in the same spot. So it's always, we need lots of money. It's just that simple. But we don't have it. Even if we raise, and nobody in here is going to raise taxes to the amount that we need to fund everything that we have to have. So if this does go forward, and I was the only one on our board that, I mean, was Deborah? I think it was.
No, Deborah's voted with us.
Okay, so I was the only one on our board. No, it's not.
That's why that was funny.
Okay. Because, and what I want to do is at least have input into it. So if we could start from the end game and work our way back, what do we want an RTA to actually do? I don't like the way it's set up in Richmond, where each locality then gets a piece of it, because no offense, we bring in a ton of money from sales tax. And I don't want anybody else picking our pocket, or Stafford or anybody else. It's not fair and not right. If we want to do local projects, we can put out bonds like we have for years, and then we can raise taxes like we have for years to pay for those for our citizens to get those projects done. So what does an RTA actually do? What does a regional authority actually do? What projects regionally do we do? And I know you keep talking about 95. I'm so tired of 95. 95 has sucked all of the money out of all of our pockets so that we can fix it and let everybody else off the hook who should be fixing it. And yet our regional roads suck. And I'm tired of it, and no more for 95. I'm done with them. And I don't care if it's back to where it is in 6 years. I don't know if I'll be here in 6 years, but hopefully the person who is here will understand that me getting to Stafford and getting to Fredericksburg and getting over to King George and getting to Caroline is what we are supposed to be doing as a region. You know, and I say this all the time on FRA, we have a strategic plan that talks about growing business here and how we want to have business here. And we have all these great people that are here. Then on the other hand, we have our transportation authority making it easier to get up to all your jobs in Northern Virginia. We make no sense. There's a big disconnect. So any regional projects, we need to have a priority list. It needs to be beneficial to the region. That's why, again, I was the only one with the river crossing that voted on my board for that too, because I think regionally that is a good thing. But that's where it needs to come. You guys, I honestly, I'd prefer if you guys weren't in it. I mean, I really don't think that any regional projects will be going out that way. And I don't think it's really fair to have folks in it that don't have direct benefit from it. That's my opinion. But again, it's up to the state of if they're going to throw you in there or not. So then regional prioritization, and we need to make sure we stick to those priorities. But then the other thing that we need to realize is we're all elected officials, and we need to realize that the citizens that are out there don't buy any of this. They don't. How many billions of dollars have we kept dumping into transportation? And it's not being fixed anywhere. Where is the master plan for the region that says this is what we do? I know we did something like this years ago, Matt, where we connected everything. But where is that? Where is that put into our priority list to say these are the things that we need to do? Yes, it's going to cost us kind of money, but you know what? The taxpayers who are funding all this need to be able to be brought along into this so that they understand that their money that they don't want to give up, which I don't blame them, because I don't think anybody here likes paying taxes, but they will then have a buy-in to say, okay, I understand. I don't like it, but I at least understand that this will fix this. And we have yet to do that on, I would say, most of the projects that we put forward. And then when we get to them with Smart Scale, exit 126 down there, fantastic that it's starting. We voted on that in 2017. It's going to be done, I think, along with the Route 17 bridge over to the hospital, 2025. These projects they take so long that our citizens are not buying it. And we need to be able to explain that. Throw another tax on them, throw another layer of government, because that's, again, what this is going to be. You're going to see a lot of people very upset about this because when it doesn't pay off and when traffic gets even worse and when we're funding transit, no offense, but transit, as we've argued before, you know, in parts of my county don't work. They're not going to work in King George or Caroline. So we need to lay it all out from what the end game is and work our way back. The funding, I think we can figure it out. And I would love if the state would say, instead of 1% extra that we're going to put on you for sales tax, we'll give you 1% back. Or how about this? Hampton Roads took it all from us. Is there another area in the county or in the state that we can go and take it from? And I don't mean that literally, don't do that. But I'm saying,
Chris.
yes, no last names. But if you could do, if we could figure that out, what we want it to look like, then I think we can work our way back to how we get it done. And I think, and one last thing too, this is not heated. You know, this is not heated. Let's go back to FAMPO when we were over in the other building.
Yeah.
That was heated.
That wasn't.
Oh my God. Oh yeah, but whoa.
The good days.
Yeah, those are so anyway, thank you for hearing me out and giving me Matt's time.
Okay, thank you. Jeff?
Thank you, Meg. Though, let me just point out, the Caroline and King George aren't voting members of FAMPO. We get to come, we get to listen, we don't get to vote. It's been like that. I've been on this board since the George Washington Regional Commission since 2010. Come to many, many, many FAMPO meetings. We don't get a vote. Everybody's been gracious enough to let us have a say. But we don't benefit. Caroline, King George don't benefit. If you were to break these numbers down by locality, it would be frightening how little. We'd be at the bottom of that list, and King George would be a close second. We don't get the dollars. We don't get the look of everybody else of what this will do to us and for us. We're busy recruiting businesses to the county for people to work there. Matt, you're right. The problem is we can't lay enough pavement down to fix any of this. So the minute we lay down more pavement, our maintenance costs go up because then you have to go back 5 years later and start fixing it. And we're still worried about what we're going to build. So laying more pavement is not the answer. It's not going to solve this. It just keeps making the problem bigger because we have bigger maintenance issues. I've got a ton of maintenance issues in the county that I can't get. I got rural things, getting ditches done. I mean, fixing the edges of roads that have collapsed from trucks running over the edges of the roads over and over again. 95 is foreign to most of the folks that I'm talking about. That's not the way they go. But we're lumped into something that none of this is going to help fix for us. It won't put a fraction. I mean, we want one bridge over 95 4-lane. The estimate's $40 to $45 million. It's not going to, we couldn't raise enough here to do that. And that's something that just anecdotally we've looked at. What would it take? Because when you get to the other side of the bridge, you're back to a 2-lane road again. So, though I understand the regional issues, and I've sat here for a long time and listened, Caroline and King George, we're trapped. We don't stand a chance in any of this. And that's my frustration with all this recordation tax and all this other stuff that we're talking about raising. Just, it's a tax on folks that's never going to produce anything.
Yes.
Just a comment on that, just a point of clarity. We are not anticipating, I don't think anybody is anticipating that money is going to fix every problem. But at the moment, when we apply for a federal grant to perhaps build your bridge, right, we have to come up with 20% local match. So if we don't have some, where does one get the 20% match to build your bridge?
20, I mean, I'm back to we should have had proffers. I'm going to go back to in the very beginning, because proffers would have given us that money, and we don't have them. And we haven't had them. We've been stripped of them. So every developer, and we haven't approved anything new in 10 years. But the developments that were there, when they come back, if they come back, the proffer amounts are just trifling. They're harder to track than they are to spend. I hate to say that.
But now you got the data centers coming in, so that'll be money from heaven.
Oh,
That's my line.
I think we need to, I think we're hearing a lot of discussion, which is great, but just in respect of our elected officials' time, I think we need to maybe iron out some details. So I guess, and I know that Senator McPike left, but I think my first question to them is, are they adamant that they want to submit a piece of legislation and support RTA for the Fredericksburg regional area? Like, is this happening, whether we like it or not?
Senator Pike has every intention. I can't speak for him.
Yeah, he went to the bathroom.
We filed it last year.
Yeah.
So, thank you. My position in this is not been on the legislative agenda for the last years for the localities for Fredericksburg City or Stafford County. So this is the first time we've had this discussion at this level. What I've said publicly repeatedly is the stakeholders have to be at the table weighing in on it. So that's the first step, and this is really the first time I've had discussion.
Yeah.
So before, can you stay for 2 more minutes, Senator McPike, just so we get some clarity here? So I'm just trying to get to what's happening, right? Like, because we've all had a lot of discussion, but I feel like we're no better off than when we walked in the room. So are we talking about the fact that you are 100% going to put in a bill for an RTA for the Fredericksburg area?
I want to hear from you. That's what I'm here.
Okay. So I think it sounds to me like we're probably not ready. In my opinion, just hearing the varying opinions here, we're probably not ready. I don't know what your timeline is, but the comment that you made about getting the recordation taxes back, and that was your whole motivation last time. If the bill suggested that we increase sales tax, then that's a little different than getting the recordation taxes back, right? Because that's increasing sales tax. So I can speak for Stafford just because I told you our legislative priority is wanting to raise sales tax for our schools construction. I don't think Stafford wants a bill that increases sales tax to go to transportation. So if we could just have your support in that, and that's Stafford and Stafford alone, I don't know, and it sounds like Spotsy was kind of in the same situation. And then I just made some notes while I was sitting here.
If it's worthy to note that we are actually may have a 1% overall sales tax coming in this year as well. So that would be in addition to whether Stafford County wants to have.
Wait,
that's what the construction.
So-
Oh, yeah. So it's the same piece of legislation that we're talking about.
I carried it last year.
Yeah. And it didn't go anywhere. So, but there was a couple.
Senate, so it is, just to clarify, Madam Chair.
This is the 1% that.
That's the one VACO's supporting.
VACO,
It is a 1% that allows you as a board of supervisors to put on referendum
Exactly.
a 1%.
Yes.
It is not something that is imposed on you. It is something that you then have to vote.
And that's what we're asking.
Referendum, and then your citizens have to approve that referendum and move through the.
And that's what we're asking for, but we're asking for, you can carry your bill, but we want one separately, just in case that one doesn't pass. Because last year, or a couple years ago, or maybe 10 years, there was another locality that did it, and they were very successful because they asked for it specifically, and it had a sunset clause and everything. So if yours doesn't carry, then we would like one independently that we would hope we would get more support if it becomes contentious from a partisanship, that we might get a little more support. So that's kind of where we've talked about, which you'll hear about next week.
So hang on, there are only 7 or 8 localities in the state that have the 1% because they've all gone separately and asked.
That's correct. But he's talking about sponsoring a bill for and you sponsored it last year and it didn't pass, to allow that all localities to be able to do that. But just in case that fails, we don't want to not have a bill in.
It died by like 1 or 2 votes, and so it's likely to pass. And it's really about what we call Christmas tree bills, whether or not we want to add on more localities or whether we want to have tools in the toolbox for all localities to have the same rules of the road.
Correct.
I'm a big fan of having the same rules of the road. And if you want to provide that referendum to your citizen and them to choose, it should be your right and your authority as a locality. I'm not a big fan of having yes and you, but not you. as a policy. We've dealt with so many different code sections that frankly have been boogered up, that's a technical word, over the time of just doing these little carve outs. And so as a legislator, I've seen the negative impacts over time of that, because then there's not political will then to help others. And that puts us in a really bad place of like picking literal winners and losers versus this is an authority that localities should have the ability to apply or not apply, but it's going to be your choice. But I hear what you're saying.
Okay, so that's where, when you go back to transportation, we're not really favorable of then increasing sales tax to pay for an RTA. I think that, and if you're willing to at least hear that and not force that on us, because that would change our ability to fund schools. And then I think Stafford has talked for years about the ability to get our recordation taxes back. So if you can help us see how creating an RTA will allow us to get our recordation taxes back without increasing taxes currently, that would be a start.
Madam Chair, you have to go.
Yeah.
If you want to hear more, and I'll follow up with the meeting notes to get that also. I think Ian and staff, and I'm happy to check with Senate Finance staff, but if you look at your leverage dollars and the ability for other regions to leverage dollars, essentially what you're doing is taking your local dollars and getting that multiplier effect of investment back. When you're competing with CTB dollars, you're dealing with, do you have skin in the game and do you have money or don't you? And your weighting factors immediately drop you off the table down to 1,572, whatever that number is, without you starting to leverage your dollars locally. And that's what this is about. Are you going to leverage some of your dollars locally back into the game and then get those additional state dollars back to do what you want to do? And those aren't projects driven by me. Those are projects driven and created by you. And that's really what it's about. That becomes the multiplier effect. So it's not just about each locality, but what you're able to leverage together. That's really the story. Can you leverage the grander state? Can you leverage, and what do you want to leverage? That's not for me to tell you. I think there's some opportunities to figure that right solution out. But that's what's on the table. You have some of the worst traffic in the East Coast and in the nation. We know that's a fact. We know that we cannot leverage all the CTV dollars because the backlog is too long, because we've had state, frankly, tax cuts and other things which are reducing those revenues in order to deal with issues. We're dealing with a lot of my legislative friends on I-81. You know, some agreed, some did not agree to have fuels tax along I-81 to start to, because they live it every day. Like one thing, just like this area, one small bumper to bumper, or one, you name it, and that accordion effect happens. And so there's no one size fits all. It's about what you want to craft for this region together as a partnership. And that's what it's going to take.
So what is your timeline for us?
So if you want to start to leverage dollars, you know, we need to get feedback as a delegation. So we have pre-file that's open right now, and we have until the 30th, and then we have a small window to make changes. And obviously we can make changes through the legislative process. So the question is, do you want something in to have the conversation continue, and then have additional time to say, what's this fit? You know, running the models. If we had an additional $75 million leveraged into a project, what off the list could we have done? To Chris's point at the end, right? What is the things? Well, you could probably go back and do the analysis of what you could have leveraged and what you could have been successful. I don't know those answers. That's
right.
Madam Chair, just one point real quick. Thank you so much. And I know Ms. Vanuch was speaking for herself. I'm sure maybe she has some understanding of what other board members may want, but we don't have a position right now in relation to what we do or don't want to dedicate transportation and the taxes. I would love to not see taxes go up. That's great, but we can't give you that position right now. So that's something I think we can come back with, but I didn't want to mislead anyone to think there was a specific position that our board has taken in Stafford yet. So we should gather that.
Well, we have taken a position. We took a position that 1% would go to schools.
We have not taken a position on what we want for transportation and an RTA. So no one on our board can speak to that right now, to our state representatives.
Lori? And as far as we go in Spotsy, I know this sans Chris, but we would want an option not to participate in any way that you can craft that.
Piggybacking on that.
And that is the whole thing.
The same thing for Carolina,
If-
the option, and I got my whole board support on that.
So it's right now, I mean, we did a resolution the last meeting, which I would think that you received, that we were against doing this. So an option, far be it from us to say what other localities want. That's their business, but that's where we stand. So an option to opt out. Kathy?
I was gonna say that, but I also have mentioned this at one of our breakout sessions at Vaco, and there was a different delegate, and I do not remember who was there. But one of the things that was suggested was possibly some kind of more extensive study with more data and information, especially showing like what a transportational regional approach, like what you were mentioning earlier, might be the first step, because we're making all these choices without, yes, there's a lot of data, but there's only one kind of data is what I'm trying to get at. We don't know what we're putting this money to. It's just, here's a bunch of money we can raise. We have a lot of projects.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Building on what
Thank you, Senator.
Chris said.
Yeah.
I can understand where Ian's coming from on this. Now just basically said, please tell us what we want. But what I would ask is, and to Chris's point, where most people get frustrated with taxes is nobody sees what they get for it. So you're just throwing more money down. And it is critically important to decide, if you do this, you will get this. I don't know anything about the startup on the Richmond RTA, but I know in Hampton Roads and the Northern Virginia one, they started out with, here are the projects we're going to fund first. And we're going to focus on that. And as a project is completed, then we get together again and we add one. And to the point, and Jason's kind of sticking his neck out too a little bit. I can stick my neck out all I want right now. But
I can too, it's fine.
And because I've said this on the board before, I realize that a lot of these projects initially are not going to be in the city. Yet I think we're ready to make the investment to make this happen, because the projects we're looking at, if it's Route 3, Route 301, which is critical to this corridor, to this region, we're there. We're ready to help, but we do need to have some definition of, what will the projects be? And then everybody can take a look at it. Again, I'm really getting a little bit disturbed when I keep hearing what's in it for us, what's in it for us, what's in it for us, and not kind of, Jeff, you've always kind of been that way about this.
This is more pavement, more pavement, more pavement that we can't fix.
No, it doesn't have to be.
Certainly saying it is going to.
No one is mandating that.
We get left completely out of this. Everything bypasses, everything bypasses.
Well, that's
I think
on the RTA discussion, you're there because you're going to be part of it if you decide to go. So you need to be part of this discussion on what is that needs in Caroline County that makes sense for the region.
You have enough votes on that end of the table to outdo anything that we think is important for the next 20 years, and I've been sitting here 13. There are more than enough votes on that end of the table to outdo anything. In 301, there's nothing you all can do for 301. There's nothing that can be done that's going to fix anything at this point in time.
Nothing can fix anything,
You
so why
can't
even
fix-
try?
No, you can't fix 301. King George's got a problem in 301. They've got stuff to the edges of it. Okay, so the solution to us for 301 to fix it was to close all the crossovers at one point in time. We'll just close all the crossovers. That'll fix the traffic problem. I mean, that's what came to us, and I'll show you the study that says.
But Jeff, let's think about, and this has probably been 6 years ago. Remember when Ruby Bravo brought the idea of let's go to the governor of Maryland regarding the Harry Nice Bridge, because we were looking at security issues. What happens if something happens in this region? What's everybody's exit out? And we said, can't go over the Harry Nice Bridge unless, you're bumper to bumper. And remember, FAMPO sent a letter to Governor Hogan, and that started the conversation of them rebuilding that bridge. And look at what's happened.
It's raising more traffic.
Well,
And there's nothing, and my point, you make my point exactly precise. There is nothing we can do, we collectively, to 301 to fix that.
All right, Jason.
I respectfully disagree, and the reason I respectfully disagree is because you are making an assumption that the only way people can get around is in a single-use automobile. We have to think past driving.
Train tracks from King George to Fredericksburg.
Wait, just, no, please, we let you speak. We have to look at other options. And we talk about funding things in the comp plans. It's also up to all of us in our regions to think through the development patterns in those comp plans, urban, rural, whatever. We cannot sit here and think that everyone's going to be able to drive everywhere they want.
What I do.
No, the fact is that if other people get into transit, not necessarily residents of Caroline, not necessarily residents of King George, they take cars off the road. So if, for example, we had express buses going down to Dahlgren from various points in the region, now there's more space for King George drivers. So transit has impacts on localities, even if the riders don't even come from those localities. It's more than just the people where I live do X, Y, or Z, because we all live and work around each other. Thank you.
Okay.
Where are we going?
Where are we going from here? All right,
Madam Chair,
last discussion, Chris.
great, and
Maybe.
I'm not gonna rehash everything. I don't see how we can put something together, give it to our state delegation and say, this is what we are looking for, when even around this table, we don't even know what we're looking for. Honestly, I would rather not have anything right now than a bad piece of legislation that is not going to do anything positive.
I agree with that.
I would ask that we put together a working committee, a real working committee. Now that elections are over, there's no election coming up next year for state or local, that we then have whoever wants to join into it and have as many of us as possible, because I don't want to leave anybody out. Come together and work through everything that has been said, everything that Jeff has brought up, everything that Lori has brought up, everything that Matt has brought up, and Jason and everybody else. There's no reason why we need to rush into this, and especially if the delegation is not forcing it on us, why are we forcing it on them if we don't even know?
Okay, so let's have some conversation about that. Is there anybody that would be opposed to doing that, and maybe going back and looking at some data, maybe through your staff, and saying, okay, if we had an authority over the last 3 years for the grantors tax or TOT or sales tax, of 0.5% or 0.25%, and we looked at these different projects, could we have raised more money for the region and what the impact would have been? I mean, is that what you all are looking for? Or are you looking?
I think we need to iron out the details.
My suggestion would be.
You could be on an ad hoc member.
Taking Chris's suggestion, I think you ought to have at least one person from each of the jurisdictions for this conversation. But you need to put a time limit on it, say 6 months or 7 months. They will report back with a proposal. You might not like it or anything else like that. Not come back and say, oh, we looked at it, we couldn't do it. Bring back what you can as, if we were going to do this, this is the outline it would have, and this is the way we would fund it, and this is the projects we would look at. At least bring something back to discuss and vote on. Because, Chris, we have this discussion and then it stops and then it goes away. And then 4 years later, it comes back. And I'm sitting here going through deja vu right now, again, for at least the third or fourth time. Mm-hmm. I would hope that we've reached a point now. We've all acknowledged, whether we feel we can do anything about it or not, that we're in a pretty critical situation with transportation. We've got to do something. And I agree, we've got to better define it. But let's define it as a region, put a time limit on when they have to report back on it, so that the board has something to discuss and vote on.
And if I might, I 1000% agree with you. And I don't care if it comes back and it's stuff that people don't like, but I would like for the working committee to update the board so it's not a surprise. And then we take 6 months looking at it going, well,
right.
Sure about
that was my concern, is that we need to have intervals of updates and information that we can actually look at and say, yes, we'd like to continue in this direction, or have you thought about this? And, so we can make changes as we're moving along.
So can I?
I would just ask, I'm sorry.
You want to chair the committee?
What I did.
Okay, Ian?
I just want to clarify the proposal so that you can all say yes or no, right? So the proposal is that you're going to form, let's call it a subcommittee of the policy committee that will have at least one person from each of the, I'm hearing 5 jurisdictions.
Yeah, I was just
Yes.
gonna ask for clarification on that since we're non-voting.
No,
Yeah.
if an RTA is going to work, it needs to be, I mean, understanding at some point, people may drop out. You only need 2 to do an RTA. But I think it needs to be a regional discussion because we're talking about a regional transportation system. And I think it's very important that we keep the focus on the fact that we're talking about a regional transportation system.
And I would add too, that even if you guys in the end don't join, I think that your voices are very important to crafting something that's better. And I want not just one person from every jurisdiction, but I mean, these will be open meetings, obviously, so we can have as many,
I think that
as,
the wording is at least one.
at least one, yeah.
At least one from each jurisdiction, and you're going to meet for up to 6 months
I-
and give regular updates to the policy committee. Is that?
May, we're done, June, a report goes forward. Does that make sense?
Just remember, it's in the middle of budget season. Just want to make sure expectations are real. Crystal, you had something?
I was just gonna say, I just wanted to check in with our electeds over, and I know Senator McPike is gone, but are you guys comfortable with that? Because this is great that you guys are listening and shaking your head when we say things. It was great to hear Senator McPike say, look, if you guys want more time and you want to look at things, we want to support it.
I would say, it's just sharing some of the, looking at some of the way it's structured right now. And again, there's opportunities to amend, but at first glance, I would say that giving a delay would give it an opportunity for everyone to weigh in. We understand that part, but structurally, there are a member of the General Assembly from the House of Delegates from the Senate would be there. It has not identified potentially rotation, so I'd like to see some type of discussion so it's not top heavy with just Stafford and not, weighing into whoever else is being affected by that. And also identifying, I agree with you, Chris, about a prioritization on the projects. And it's a 60-40 split right now, which is proposed. So there's 40% that would go back to the individual localities. But I think that's probably my input that I see right now.
So are you recommending, because I think I heard you say that you guys could maybe be a part of our committee too, like maybe a senator and maybe so maybe you could be the senator and then Josh or Delegate Cole, you could be the.
Yes, but what I'm referring to is that there's 17 members.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about on the article.
Yes, a member of the House of Delegates, a member of the Senate, but there's language in there that says there's a rotation, that the city's going to be represented, or the outline, right, and there's a rotation, and so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I was talking about our.
But could you have a staff member sit in and or be involved in this discussion? So you're at least understanding what's going on. We at least have a staff member involved.
Yeah.
You mean for the
Yes,
working?
Yeah, we're talking about the working.
Okay, so,
it's just very much willing and would eager to be a part of that, I'm sure.
okay, and I'd like to ask Delegate Cole, what are your thoughts?
I want to put the working committee together. I'll personally be involved in it. I don't carry legislation this session. And just to clarify, I didn't have to build Senator and my bill just said 2 to 3 localities within a planning district could come together and create an RTA. And I would still want that to be, but I'm here at your service, so whatever you want to do. And I'll serve on that working committee personally.
Okay, all right, wonderful, thank you. Really appreciate you all being here.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, okay, Monica?
Yeah, real quick, I just want to say I'm in support of the working committee. I think that's good. If we're going to do something that is going to last, it's going to take the work to get us on somewhat of the same page. And I appreciate the participation of our legislators as well.
So we'll start in January.
If you guys.
Yes, and I want to add, Marcy, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I'm a little, I don't. Say this nicely.
Don't say it nicely.
I personally think in 6 months, we're gonna be sitting here with the same argument.
Right. I was gonna say, with Delegate-elect Cole's idea about the opt-in, let the localities that are ready to do it, do it. And if other localities aren't ready, that's fine. They don't have to.
May I ask a question? Do what?
be a part of the RTA.
which is, what is the structure? What taxes are in there?
The-
It's gonna be-
with-
what is that? That's what I'm saying, is that we're rushing into it without knowing what it is.
Well, okay, so it's because you haven't been to the last few meetings. We had very, very detailed discussions about that in this presentation. Yes.
This is because there was a whole bunch of slides in here that said, could, maybe, points to consider, could, maybe, points.
This was the recommendation. Yes.
Right.
And I'm suggesting.
So we're gonna vote on this.
That was the idea, yes, to say that this was the recommended path and to whether or not you wanted to be a part of the RTA with this structure.
Okay,
Yes.
so what's the distribution, regionally and locally?
Oh, it's in here.
Because it says points to consider.
Yeah.
And that's not happening.
No, Chris, it's in the slides. I'm sorry, Ian or
I see it.
Jeff, can we take a look at it?
Yeah.
It says the
All right.
splits in there.
So the other thing is, we have a new board member sitting over here, and our board hasn't really voted on which tax we would want to go with. We have identified the 1% in our legislative priority, but that's different than this.
So can we give Delegate Cole an opportunity to speak? Because he and I were having a little sidebar over here. Can you maybe address us as to what you're thinking as far as your piece of legislation and what that might give us the ability to do?
So basically, the original bill that I had from 2021, I think, would kind of like just repeal the dealer rule as it relates to creating an RTA. It would just simply allow 2 to 3 localities, a minimum of 2, 3 localities within the same planning district to come together, just like what you're doing now, to devise a plan, figure out which taxes you're going to use, literally the same thing you all are doing. Then you would present it to, I believe it was the Secretary of Transportation. They would give the final approval, would even go to the General Assembly, and then you would move forward. So my question is, as it relates to taxes, do what we can to, and I heard what Senator Pike said, Delegate Barry Knight is no longer the chair of appropriations, it's now Delegate Toria of Prince County. So we have some fighting in the game to remove.
Can we take their money?
Bring that recordation tax back. And then do like what New York and New Jersey do. If you're driving down the highway and you don't have Virginia license plate, you're going to get taxed. Tax the people who are coming through the highway and not tax us.
Just one point of caution, folks, just one point of caution. The Hampton Roads Transportation Authority was initially formed, and forget which court, but in court it was declared null and void because it, in some technical way, transferred the right to institute new taxes to the Hampton Roads Authority and take it away from the General Assembly, and that's been deemed to be illegal. So the framework is great, but I don't think we would, after the fact, be allowed in terms of US constitutional law to decide on taxes locally and then implement them. You would still need action from the General Assembly to implement those taxes because we're not allowed at local level to announce, hey, we've instituted a new tax. You would make recommendations to the General Assembly who would need to institute those taxes. That's what tripped up Hampton Roads, and they had to redo their whole authority. And the state then decided to implement those taxes and allocate the money to their transportation authority.
So then it sounds
like. So when would you need to know what tax we want included in the RTA?
That changes the dynamic. Because our bill, as initially drafted, just said whoever's creating it would come up with how it's being taxed.
Yeah. Now I remember that from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Secretary of Transportation.
But it would still have to go back to the General Assembly.
So we're back to the committee then. I was hoping that might give us a way to be flexible, but it sounds like there's just, it's complicated and we just got to work through it. But it's great that we're all on the same page, that we're all committed to transportation and figuring out a path forward. So I feel much better about this than we've ever been in the last few years.
Matt.
One, I think it's critically important that we have as many jurisdictions involved as we can. That's going to make it work. This is the regional transportation system, and 2 or 3, it's going to make it difficult but not impossible. Having said that, we can make the motion to approve what's been before us. I don't think it's going to pass, but if you want to make the motion, I will second the motion. No, I can't second the motion. Somebody else has a second motion. But if you want to do that, and then if it doesn't pass, I think we go right to where we're at. I mean, my biggest thing is to the point that was made by Marcy, and which is, again, we kind of go down this road before a few times and ends up, that's why I wanted a deadline and a proposal coming out of the committee, a specific, this is what an RTA is going to look like, and then it can be voted up, down, and bid. But that's going to be June. But if you want to make the motion.
Well, no, I mean, I appreciate it, but I mean, like you said, I mean, we're still talking about whether or not localities want to even be a part of it, period, not what the contours
I think
look like.
if my hope is, for whatever that's worth, is that through this discussion over the next few months, a lot of the questions and concerns that some, especially King George and Caroline, have going forward with what's in it for them and coming to an understanding that they have a role to play and they are a critical important part of regional transportation and it needs to be part of this. I'm hoping that by the time we get through this, we reach something that they might have a little bit more comfort with, at least anyway. Right now, we've just spent a lot of time throwing out numbers and stuff and everything else. So let's get the numbers in place. Let's get the idea and the concept and the projects and then see what happens.
Okay, Monica, Jason, and then we're going to move on.
Yeah, real quick. So I understand and I appreciate Marcy's point as well.
I'm hoping you're right.
We're voting on a proposal, right? We're not actually creating the legislation ourselves. That's why we have other people here to do that. And we're just saying this is kind of what we want. We're not creating a tax. It's just saying, we know this has happened. We're part of the discussion now. This is kind of the direction we want to go. I'm good voting on that. That's fine. I also don't think it will go through. We'll probably be back to the committee, but that's okay. If you want to make the motion, that's
Let's just put us all on record. Okay. Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Just one more thing before we get on that. I would just say that you would basically use this draft as a starting point in the discussions. At least you can with that if you go to the committee. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Madam Chair, I move that we approve the draft recommendation of the Rappahannock Transportation Authority as presented with a 60-40 regional local split and the grand tourist tax, transient occupancy tax, state recordation tax, and retail tax rate all included as presented here tonight.
I'll second.
Okay, questions?
I just have a point of discussion. Our board has not taken action to support this, so I feel that Stafford should be opposed to moving forward specifically on that particular language, especially when, it was pitched to the boards previously that we knew something was imminent, but we found out today that our elected officials at the state level are working with us, and I think you're going to get a much better product if we're all sitting in the same room working on this over the next year, and I think the committee is a much better route to go for longevity and support for more localities than Stafford and Fredericksburg shoving it down everybody's throat.
Mr. Chairman, just to make the statement that my board has overwhelmingly voted against it, and I will be voting against to follow their wishes, but hope that the committee can come to something that we can then present to the board next year, my board, that they would then support.
Okay, anybody else?
Meg, over.
Yes, Josh.
What a very
I voted for it, so or I didn't vote for it. I was
Yeah, it was, we wanted an opt-out.
yeah. That was one of the things.
That was one of the, yeah.
Okay. All right, so for me, as you all know, when I went up to the governor's conference on transportation and I saw the numbers for all the other transportation authorities, I'm just like, we have to have one. We can't do without having a transportation authority. And you guys all know I came back, and so I am very, very much in favor of this. I don't want new taxes, but we have to do this on behalf of the community. And I look at our comp plans and everything that's in there. So for me, it's a no-brainer. However, I do think our board hasn't taken it up, and the fact that I would like to have all the jurisdictions be a player. And so for that reason, I'm going to vote no, only because I want to do the study. And and I want this to be a regional effort. But if we were working today not to do the study, then I would vote in favor. You have anything?
Yeah, just one point for discussion. From what I could discern, it had come to our legislative committee when I was on it. And I pulled up all the agendas and the emails, and that what we could see was that at the time that Senator McPike's bill was entered in, we didn't actually take a position. There was a proposal to have opposition to it from our legislative committee. I don't think that passed on our.
It did.
If you could send that to me, that would be fantastic. I'm not trying to debate it, but I did try and pull up what I could. So if you do have access to that, you can find. If you can send it to me, that would be great. I just haven't seen it.
In our board meeting.
Sure. Sure. I'm just saying, if you have it, you're welcome to send it to me. Otherwise, I've pulled up everything that I could possibly find, and maybe I missed it. So I'm going to finish talking now. I am going to vote in favor of this. I do think we need it. It's not to try and shove it down anyone's throat. I just want to keep the movement, and with the information that I have presently right now, unless someone has something else, I'm just going to support this. So.
Okay. Lori,
So-
Marcy, and Matt.
Just real briefly, as you guys can probably tell, I'm not going to support this because that's my
And just want to get.
memo. I understand. And I so appreciate you all being here to hear this, because in previous, like I said, in previous meetings, it was like, this is going to be done. And the fact that you guys are here tells me that you want to work collaboratively, and I so appreciate that. So I look forward to the work group that we can hash out some of this stuff and get a win for everyone. So, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, Marcy, I think was first.
Oh, Marcy was first.
So as I recall, last month, I was here, Ian went over a whole slew of menu choices, pretty much, as he called it, of these are the taxes that you could look at. And we asked a bunch of questions, we asked for a little more information. I don't think he got through this entire presentation, so I don't know that he has all the answers from the questions from last month yet. But as I understood our homework to be, was to go home, look at it, come back in order to make some decisions as to which menu items did you want. And this is just the recommendation that Ian's group gave us. So I'm going to vote yes for it, because what I heard Senator McPike say was that we have time during the legislation to be able to negotiate and make changes. So that what we vote on today is not necessarily what is written in stone.
Just a recommendation.
By the General Assembly, there is a little bit of time to still manipulate some of the language.
Okay, Matt.
When this conversation started, my granddaughter was 1 year old. My granddaughter is now a junior at Minnesota State University. So nobody wants to see this move forward more than I do, and it's been kind of a bugaboo for a lot of years for me. But I do realize how critical it is that everybody be on board moving this forward. I will support it, but I would ask that we might want to, the presenter and seconder withdraw for now. Let's clean slate with everybody on the same page.
That's fine. I mean, yeah, I know.
We're not going to get anywhere, because if we start down this road now, everybody's going to leave here. Marcy, believe me, I've been down this road with you for a lot of years. I'm just hopeful that if we use this, the current document, as the base at the beginning of the discussion, and that there will be something here in June to vote on. I mean,
Okay.
that's our best hope.
Thank you,
To get
Matt.
everybody on board.
Monica, did you second?
I did.
Okay. Are you willing to remove your second?
Sure.
Yeah.
I would just put
Okay,
one caveat. Two things that I need from to do that. The first one is just a commitment that we're going to present something in June, so that it doesn't go on to 3 years from now.
It's got to be done in June.
You can still do that, but I would recommend you cut it off in June, so that if we don't get it in June, we vote on what we have, and if it fails, it
Then
fails.
come back with this.
Second one is I need a date in January, because you're all going to leave here tonight. I'm going to be on leave, and to try and get a hold of every single person and find a date, it's going to be a nightmare. So please pick a date in January and give it to me. I will then send you an agenda and some reminders and all of that.
When is our FAMPO meeting in January?
FAMPO meeting is going to be the same night as the GWRC meeting, because there's that public holiday, right? So, Chip, what is the date? 26th.
Why should I do the middle of the month?
It's the fourth Monday, because the third Monday, when we normally have the policy committee, is the public holiday. So the policy committee will be the fourth Monday on the same night as.
So you're referring to those people that want to be on the committee?
I'm saying that the 5 jurisdictions each send 1 or 2 people, 3 if they want,
Okay, you're
7
All right.
if they want.
Let's do
But I need a
fifth
date.
Monday.
Wednesday's probably.
Why don't we do the 5th Monday in January? Because no one in this room has a recurring 5th Monday meeting. Can't happen.
Wants to be on the committee?
That would be the 29th.
Okay.
First meeting.
Can I put a caveat? I would like to be on it, but I can't commit without getting approval for the board.
So you'll
I'm
be on the 26th.
Okay, all right. So, all right, hey. Okay, so right now we've got Chris, Lori, Crystal, Jason. Jeff, you want to be on it from my line?
I've got to get appointed.
Okay, can you talk to your board?
I'll
Okay,
talk to
your
my board, but I'll.
we'll talk to your boards, let Ian know. And the first meeting will be January,
Monday, the 29th of January in this room.
okay, at what time?
Call-in option for Delegate Cole and Senator Grant,
Absolutely, and
just in case they can't come or their staff.
absolutely. And can I get the time you want?
6 p.m. until
6 p.m.
6 p.m. Monday, the 29th of January here. We'll work until May and present whatever it is in June.
Okay,
One last suggestion.
yes.
Don't have any more time to have these suggestions. If you've got a specific question or information you want for that meeting, let Ian know, like, next week,
So we can pull.
so they have time to pull it together.
Yes.
Even if it's just definitions or whatever else.
We found the definition in the meeting, by the way. We can read it to you if you want, but it's quite long.
No, let's just wait.
It's in the
Okay,
legislation.
all right. Okay, I just want to say I appreciate everybody's candor, discussion, again, the delegation for being here. Thank you for your time. And everybody, if you choose to leave, have a nice Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
All right.
Madam Chair, can we then shift on 7C because of what the one.
What's that?
Yeah, well, that was all part of this, so.
Right.
It's just to allow us to do the research, which you're going to now ask us to do. So I don't know why.
Motion to approve 7C.
Okay.
Second.
All right, I have a-
Research if
Because
you-
I categorically vote no on this stuff.
Why would you vote?
Okay.
It's fine, whatever.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll vote aye.
Okay.
Yay.
Any abstentions?
Oh,
Okay,
Progress.
got a victory tonight. Okay.
You wore me down.
End of miracle.
Okay, Ian,
I'm going to pull
your-
item 8. I'm not going to give you my.
All right.
oh,
Just
thank
to
you.
tell you
Ian.
that all I was going to tell you is the roads that your locality staff have picked together with a consultant as to the Safe Streets for All study, which are the roads that have the biggest problems that we're going to seek to produce projects on. And I was just going to show you those lists. I will email it to you tomorrow morning so that you don't have to deal with it now.
Oh, we don't have a link.
Much, Ian. Okay, we do have a few action items, the Smart Scale Round 6 CPD update. Carrie? There you are.
Can you do the 1.5 minute summary?
The Commonwealth Transportation Board, as you may know, has been reviewing the smart scale process all of this year. And in October, on October 17th, they had a meeting to give you their final recommendation. Next slide. So after months of review, they kind of presented these final recommendations. And I'm going to go over some of the ones there in bold. This is the list. Go ahead, next slide. So the good news first.
This is really good news. You should listen to this.
You did license news. So as you know, before in the previous rounds, we were allowed 5 pre-applications and 4 full applications in our tier. At first, they were going to reduce us to 2 final full applications, but thanks to some local folks and their efforts, we now are back up to 4.
That's, if I can just add one thing, this is bigger than what you realize.
Yeah.
The next slide will explain it. Just go to the next slide. There. This is the middle tier. Do you see that we are the only MPO in the state of Virginia that's been given the additional slot, right? FAMPO. And that's through work of our CTV member, through work that I did, through work Paul Anello did. We all worked together and we convinced the CTV to create a middle tier. So the chairperson of FAMPO went to the
They said, we'll
CTV
give it to you,
thing,
stop coming to our meetings.
to the
I think
CTV
I
and argued the
wrote them
case.
down.
And we are the only one that's got this, right? So everybody else in the state has got less slots now than they had before this, except us. And also Stafford and Spotsylvania have gotten an extra slot too that they wouldn't have had. So that is massive news for us. We're a leg up compared to every other MPO in the state who's gone down. They have less slots.
And if we can all
Now
leverage
Spotsylvania
funding,
owes
that'd be
us.
great.
They got to join the RTA
Gary?
because we got them additional projects.
Should have held out until they had said yes.
We're going to proceed with the changes. So, in the previous rounds for HPP funds, now HPP funds are the state's high priority project. That's the only kind of funding that MPOs can apply for. There are two streams of funding. Localities can also apply for different grant funding. But for us, it's just HPP. And in the past, the only definition that we had to worry about was that the projects were on corridors of statewide significance or regional networks. But now they are refining that definition to only projects that include these feature types. And it's a very restrained list. New capacity highway, that means new lanes, new through lanes, new pavement. Managed lanes, new or improved interchanges, passenger rail stations or service, freight rail, high capacity fixed skyway transit, that's like a BRT, transit transfer stations, or new bridges. So if you look at that list, many of our past projects, especially in round 5, would not have been eligible, wouldn't have passed, wouldn't have funded.
They would have been too small. Do you understand that these have to be colossally big projects?
These are gigantic projects.
They will not fund small projects for MPOs.
Next slide.
From now on.
Wait, can you repeat that for my board members to hear?
They will not fund small projects for submitted by FAMPO or GWRC. They want bigger projects, which means that the local match becomes an issue.
Next slide again. So then the next change is that they are eliminating funding step 2. In previous rounds, there were 3 steps. Step 1 funds locality projects, primarily using district grant funding. Step 2 allowed small projects that would have fit that criteria, but were submitted by MPOs like us to be funded by high priority funding before the rest of the projects in step 3. Step 3 is allocating high priority funding to large projects, which compete statewide, including against areas with significant local match capabilities, like the folks we were just talking about in Hampton Roads and Northern Virginia. So they're going to eliminate funding step 2. Combining that with the new HPP rules means that FAMPO, PBCs, no longer can submit small projects. They have to submit large projects and they have to compete statewide. So leverage funding, as you can see, is going to become vastly more important.
A quick question.
Yes, Jason.
So do we have the definition of a small project versus a large
Anything in the
project?
city of
Pretty much.
So the previous list,
Mhm.
anything not on that list, we cannot submit.
No, the size of the project. So you said a small project, like an interchange improvement, that could be a small
So an
project.
interchange improvement is a grade separated project.
Grade separate projects will be allowed. But a regular intersection where you just want to add a little turn lane is not big enough.
Sure. So, okay. So it really is the type of project, not the dollar amount, but those end up lending themselves to larger dollar amounts. I hear you, but okay. That's really the.
That cleared up.
Sure. I'm trying to think of when we as FAMPO want to submit and when we're thinking about the types of projects that we are going to submit. Yeah. How large the types of projects we're going to submit are. So essentially thinking, yes, going back to the RTA, how much do we need to be leveraging in order to get that critical mass? Because that's my concern, is that if we don't start leveraging, we're not going to have any projects to submit for HPP.
And right now, we're currently already working with the tax on the list of projects, which is at the end of this presentation. So we're already thinking about that. And
But- All right, well, I'll, Madam Chair, I will have another question when we get to that list of projects.
Okay.
Next.
Next slide.
All right, I believe Monica has a question.
Yeah, I have a question. So our board just
Oh,
voted to
next.
try and submit for some smaller projects. How soon?
Now, localities have nothing to do. So they are not bound by HPP rules because they're also applying for district grant funding, which is a different stream. So you guys don't have to.
So
And that was STGB and.
Right, the one.
Oh,
we
yeah,
just-
that's
Initial one. It wasn't smart scale.
Okay, sorry, just
Yeah.
checking.
Okay, so one of the other recommendations that is going to change things quite a bit, they're modifying the land use factor, and that's one of the factors. You can see the other ones there: safety, congestion, accessibility, land use, economic development, and environment. Those are the factors under which all of our projects are graded. Next slide, we'll explain things better. They found when they reviewed all of the prior rounds that the land use factor had too much weight. It was as high as 74% of the score in some cases. Some projects were being funded solely on the basis of their land use factor. So they decided to mitigate this problem and redistribute the land use points to other factor areas. Now, for us, this has been very beneficial to our small project submissions, and the modification is going to result in much lower scores were we to submit those type of projects this round. For example, our BCR trail project was pretty much just a land use factor project.
So your buy compared projects are going to fail. That's basically what that says.
Yeah.
Next.
Thanks. All right, so as you can see, with all these changes, we're going to have to adapt quite a bit to be successful in this round and really change things from what we have been doing in previous rounds. We've been very successful in the past as a region, and so to continue to do that, we're going to have to submit different kinds of projects. We are already working with the Technical Advisory Committee as a region to come up with the best projects we can. This is our preliminary list that we're going to be submitting to VDOT, and we are going to be, of course, whittling that down. This is what we're working with so far, and that is in your packet, and you guys can peruse that at your leisure. Next slide. So the next steps. As I said, the project concepts are due to VDOT in the Smart Scale portal in December. They are going to assist us with 3 projects apiece, 2 old ones and 1 new one. And so I'm going to find out pretty early in December, I think it's the 5th, on whether these recommendations are going to be formally adopted by the CTP. It looks like they are, but we don't know yet for sure. And I will let you guys know in January how everything falls out formally. Go from there.
Ian, is this really kind of 1 step forward, 2 steps back, or just 1 step forward, 1 step back? We get the extra projects, but now they've changed the rules on how they're going to be scored.
So if we didn't get that extra project slot, we would add even less opportunity to get somewhere. So the extra slot is definitely going to make a difference. However, the kind of project we put in that slot now has to be something bigger. And preferably with some local funding.
So,
So large projects.
Jason.
So can we go back to the project slide? This is where I wanted to ask my question. Well, there we go. Perfect. So with these candidate projects, ignoring the ones that are considered not eligible, do you have and just a swag and high level estimate of the median cost of these projects? Okay, that's fine. But the reason I asked that question is because I want, and I want the policy committee to understand, what is the minimum amount of leveraged funding that's going to even make us eligible to win any of this money?
The rule we used to follow in the previous round, up until the previous round, is that we saw projects over $20 million not getting funded. So we try to keep our projects under $20 million each.
Right.
Because they wouldn't get funding. Now, however, that's all gone.
Out the window.
Exactly.
So now it can be $40 million projects, $30 million projects, $20 million projects,
We-
$10 million
But
projects.
we need, we need to be,
How many match?
no, but we need to be coming in with $10 million of leveraged funding theoretically, at least.
95 lanes, that project, the last estimate we had was about 140, $130 million.
That's not happening.
And then you need to have
It's fine.
some sort of leverage, because if you put in for
We're not getting anything big from it. Again, it's coming down to what we really need, we're not getting. We're playing to the formulas is what we're doing,
Well, and
which is
that's,
not the greatest thing.
No, it's not. But the fact that we can't even do any bike ped projects, we can't even get some of the stuff that we're looking
You
for.
can on your local.
Well, I'm in this.
On the regional. side.
Yes.
but it was also stressed to me that it is a cost benefit analysis. So if the project is a stellar project, it may not be the leverage funding.
So you
May not. I'm not buying it. Because it's all going to come down to money.
Marcy.
Terry, you may want to check the CTV site or OIB site tomorrow or the next day.
Thank
for
you.
some additional information.
Thank you very much.
Good information or bad information?
Because I only just got it and I can't.
Things have been rolling in like that. Like I'll do a presentation and the very next, like the afternoon after I do the presentation, oh, something changes. Like
Okay.
things just keep coming and
Okay, if there's any,
it's fluid.
if there's anything significant, could you and
Yes.
Ian make sure we get an email?
We're
Thank
trying to
you.
get you the best deal
I know.
and working with the TAC, I think we are. We're getting
Yes.
better than we would have.
Yeah.
And with VDOT's always a big help on these projects. That's why we the highest percentage approved in the
That's-
state
That's the thing. We get the highest. We get the highest.
until now.
All right.
You don't know that yet.
So keep being hopeful. Yes, so there we go. That's the next steps and that's where we're at.
All right, any questions? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate the brief summary. Okay,
Man B, Chair.
yes.
So this one, I'm gonna just cheat. I'm gonna cheat a little bit.
Okay.
If I give you the 1-minute summary, you might not need to have the rest of the presentation. The 1-minute summary is this. When you apply as MPOs or planning district commissions like GWRC for funding, we have to apply in HPP funding. And one of the questions that you have to answer is your project on a corridor of statewide significance? Now, US 1 is a corridor of statewide significance, the I-95 is, US 17 is, but Route 3 is not.
About 610.
No.
It's not.
So what
Should be to
staff,
Connor, scroll up to the map.
what staff have done here with the aid of the TAC is to make a proposal to the CTB that Route 3 gets declared a corridor of statewide significance, so that in the future, when we apply for projects in Spotsylvania or the city or Southern Stafford or King George County, it will score in to the HPP project list so that we can actually apply as FAMPO and GWRC for the funding. So this has not succeeded in other areas for many years. They haven't added any new corridors for a long time, but we've put a lot of effort into this. We're asking for you to endorse our effort to get it also added to the list of corridors of statewide significance. That's all this is.
Madam Chair, so moved.
Second.
Okay,
Didn't even do
discussion.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You sign the
Yep,
last
I-
page and give it to think.
Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Next
Done.
item.
Done. Next item, Madam Chair, is the future of
future.
transit in the region.
Yes.
Very quick one as well. Connor, just pick up the slides. We were asked to meet OmniRide, Fred Transit, FXV Go, myself, and we also had the deputy city manager meet with us. And really, after meeting, also chatting to the head of DRPT, we've come back to you with some questions. You asked us to investigate greater cooperation between FAMPO and FXV Go. And the group decided we need to come back to you and ask for clarity on what you want us to do, right? So next slide. That's all what we did, right? We met. I went to Richmond and met with the director of DRPT. We had a meeting here. We talked about this, and our discussion led to asking more questions. So before we do any work, we're coming back to you. Next slide. We want to ask you these 3 questions. And if you can answer these questions, then we know what to do. First question, do you want us to investigate alternatives to regional bus services being provided by FXB Go operating as a department of the city? In other words, the question behind the question is, should we explore other models, right? Fred, FXB Go being, for example, an independent transportation system that's not under the city, or alternatively, having a different operator operate the local buses, or Fred staying FXB Go staying exactly as it is and using the same model they're using now. That's what we mean by alternatives, right? There might be an alternative that uses, well, question 3, do you want us to investigate other modes such as on-demand microtransit? That's an alternative system, right? And then the second question is, do you want us to prepare tables illustrating potential costs and benefits of those various options? The reason we're asking you this is because it takes staff time. It takes OmniRide and PRTC staff time. It takes Jamie's office staff time to do this work, and it takes FAMPO staff time to do this. So we didn't want to rush off and start looking at other alternatives that no one's interested in, because then we will really waste a lot of time. But we're prepared to do the work if you want us to do those things.
All right, Matt.
Last word on this. This, I think, is critically important to look at all options for us going forward. So I think transit is going to take more and more of a role in the region, maybe not everywhere, but enough to where we really need to jumpstart it. We really need to evaluate where we are, where we're going, and what asks. This is really, for me, what is the mission? We want to have a more robust transit in the region. I think we all do that. We can. 2, what are the resources available and how do we best use those resources? This will answer those questions and be able to bring something back for the board to consider. So I hope we can go forward based on answering all 3 questions.
Okay, anybody else?
Concur.
Okay. Anybody opposed to what Matt recommended?
Excuse me. I don't have I think we do need more data on this. Right now, I think, one of the things that Fredericksburg Go was going to do is they kind of honed down the numbers on where the different lines were and that sort of thing. I think they have given us that, I believe. But because I think we need to know what are people using right now.
Right.
And also, is it still free?
They have a transportation strategic plan, which they're busy finishing now, transit strategic plan, I beg your pardon. And they have proposed new routes, which are being shared with the localities to comment on. So I went to one of those presentations to look at the proposed new routes. So that study, which is required by the federal government, is almost complete, I believe, to do that.
I mean, I'd like to know how many buses are full.
I think.
How many buses have one person on it?
So I think FXB Go can give you
Okay.
a range of numbers.
Okay, I think they've
bring
given us
this
that.
back to the January meeting or February based on whatever the agenda looks like.
So the answers to those 3 questions are going to take us longer than the January
Okay.
meeting.
Okay.
So we said there at the bottom in the first quarter. So
Okay,
in the
that
first quarter
works.
of next year, we'll bring you
That
back
works.
some answers.
Okay, perfect.
Is that okay?
All right, thank you.
Done.
Okay.
The RTA update I've just done, so I'm not gonna, I didn't finish, but I
This
think we've
would
got
be
guidelines.
9E would be next. Policy committee meeting schedule. Everybody saw that
Yes.
online when you
Please.
read your packet. Do
Please.
we have any correspondence?
Chair, please just to remind the policy committee, when you look at that calendar, the January and February meetings are on the
Correct.
same night as the GWRC board because of the public holidays. Just want to remind you of that.
Yes, that is true.
Done. Correspondence?
Do we have any correspondence?
The notice of the park and ride environmental in Stafford, see like correspondence.
Do we need to take any action on that?
No.
All right, thank you. Okay, staff and agency reports.
Quick update that the congestion management plan website has been updated on our website, as well as the public involvement report. It's just really quick.
So
Did you want to add more to the?
I did have a quick question. So this is now publicly available, the congestion data?
So it's a quick answer. The PMP, the congestion management process is something we do. What we do is every quarter we download all the data relating to congestion on the corridors that we've selected to monitor. It's one of the requirements we have, particularly because we have the TMA in Stafford. We're required to do this. And we monitor, I think it's 7 corridors, if I'm correct. And we study the congestion on those corridors that is occurring each quarter. And we get the data, Becky, I believe, from the Redis. Download it, produce a report, and we put it quarterly on our website. The reason we make such a big deal about this is it's a federal requirement. When you have a TMA, you're required to do this to monitor congestion, and it's supposed to feed into our planning products so that we plan to work on the congestion and air quality impacts of those corridors. We are federally also required to inform you all that we are doing this and that the latest report is now available.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Becky. I'm just trying
No
to quickly.
problem.
And the public engagement reports just show you that we meet with hundreds of people. Coley goes out to the farmers markets, to the library, all over the place, and you can see this. Coley has spoken to 531 individual people this year about FAMPO. That's a big number. When you're doing it one-on-one,
Sure.
That's a big number.
Collie, do you have anything you want to add? Go.
It's been a joy. I love talking to everybody. And a lot of Spotsylvania residents say they want transit. A lot of people have complained about 95, a lot of people are just nice to talk to.
Okay, great. Appreciate your feedback. Okay, VDOT's historical trend of local match.
Do you still want this? Susan went to a lot of trouble to get it for you, but it was related to the Transportation Authority. You wanted to know the match.
No, we want it. We want the information as quick as you can get it to us.
Connor,
there.
pull up the slide. There you go.
It's really simple. I went in there and I pulled all the local funds that are on any of the locality's projects. So I separated them out by the locality. I started off, Spotsylvania has 112 million. And as you can see, it's in the previous and the first 3 years. Next slide. Stafford, theirs is in the previous and the first 3 years, and theirs is 68 million. Hold on, there's more to come. The city of Fredericksburg, they only had 1.4, but just remember the city, y'all maintain your own roads.
Yep.
So there's a lot of information and work that they do that I don't have their information for. Okay, so just remember that. They only have 1.4, but they maintain their own roads. So that's information I don't have.
So one
It's more than that.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is, but that's what I just want to make that caveat of, this is, make sure that everybody understands, I don't have that all that information.
Okay, so on that particular slide, if somebody from the public was looking at that, should we have a footnote? Because otherwise people would say, wow, why is there such a discrepancy between them and Stafford and Spotsy, just with the numbers we've seen
Right.
thus far? I think that slide deserves a footnote.
They can, and I have all the UPC numbers, so they can refer to any of those on the side. But I can add the footnote if you want.
That would be great if you.
No one's gonna know the UPC.
But
No.
if we'll continue on.
Okay.
So, this is just to go through a couple things. The first, you can see Spotsy and Stafford, this was what I pulled off the reports, but I knew that there was additional funds that had not been added to our system yet, because I have to have commitment letters from the localities before central office will let me add the money to the projects. So the additional local funds for Pennsylvania was 2 smart scale round 5 projects. One was 10 million, one was 17.9 million. And then Stafford was Route 610 and Lay Hill Road. Then I subtracted for the 2 grants that Spotsylvania received. One was 900,000 and one was 1.35. And then I subtracted for betterment on Spotsylvania too, because that doesn't affect the project or the roadway. It just betters their infrastructure under our road. Stafford has betterment on their projects, but their projects that have that on there are locally administered. So I don't have to have an agreement for that. Y'all automatically pay for your own betterment as you do the project. So that's why y'all do have betterment on your projects. Okay, so that doesn't, so y'all, because y'all do your local projects. Okay. All right, that's about it. So that, as you can see, Spotsy and Stafford have almost the exact same amount that they.
Some of us are disproportionately funding.
What?
No, ignore her.
Yeah. She's being catty here. But this is,
She's being Crystal.
as you can see, this is local funds but it was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, it's almost the exact same. Stafford and Spotsylvania has put up within the previous years or the next 3 years of the program. And like I said, Fredericksburg will have something different because they maintain their own roads.
Right, with an RTA, the city's ready to help pay those bills, right?
Caroline's gonna do it. Okay, 2.5.
Yeah. And just to give you an idea, the total project cost for Spotsy is 403 million, and the total project cost for Stafford is 418 million. So that'll give you an even how things lay out. Okay, any questions?
Any questions?
I'm just not going to say that Garrisonville dirty word road anymore.
Dirty. Okay, okay, no questions. Thank you for that report. Okay, board member and chair comments. Do any board members have any comments? Don't get up yet. Tonight is Matt Kelly's last meeting. After how many years, Matt?
A lot.
A lot.
Came on 2002.
In fact, I don't think there were a lot of women on this board when you first started. Would that be an accurate statement?
That would be, yes.
So anyway, we want to recognize you for being a steady hand here. I know it wasn't always easy. There were, as you reminded some of us in this room, the conversations were very difficult. A lot of not screaming and shouting, but almost a lot of very robust conversations. But we appreciate everything you've done for the community, all the public meetings that you've attended, and your transportation knowledge truly is going to be severely missed, not just here, but at PRTC and also at VRE. So thank you very much for your service to the city of Frederick. We also have one for Dave Ross and also for Tim McLaughlin, who are both alternates, and they have also both served a long time. Would either of you be willing to pass these off? And thank you very much to Tim and Dave.
Yeah. One comment from me as a FAMPO administrator. I see Stephen Haynes sitting in the back there. Won't you stand up, please? This is also the last time Stephen Haynes will be at the policy committee or the TAC, and he's served in those sorts of capacities for how many years?
7 years.
7 years at the TAC, and how many years at VDOT? 37 years at VDOT. And so he's worked with us for many, many years, and we just want to thank him for the years of service. The TAC did give him a certificate, so we did, a little card. We did say thank you and farewell, but I just thought I should let you know as well that we will miss Stephen. Or the people that come to the TAC, he's the gentleman in the room.
Okay, anything else? we will see, we do not have a meeting in December. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving
We will see you
and be
twice.
safe.
Know that.
Once it's policy, it's a workshop.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Okay.